Chapter 25:14. Ning Shu appeared in a restaurant in the city of water and waited for Mei Ziqing. He waited for a while, but Mei Ziqing didn't come. He sent a message to ask what was going on. Mei Ziqing, it's restricted. I can't enter. Ning Shu. The city of law was full. The people behind couldn't enter. Ning Shu was a little helpless. How could he communicate face to face like this? He thought about it and said, how about we meet in the virtual space? Mei Ziqing, okay. Ning Shu told 2333 to go to the virtual space. It had been a long time since he went to the virtual space. After becoming a super mission enforcer, he spent most of his time in the Law Space or Nine Palace Mountain. Entering the virtual space, Ning Shu felt the power of space. When he arrived at the designated restaurant, he walked into the hall and saw Mei Ziqing waving at him with a smile. Xiaohua with short red hair was sitting next to Mei Ziqing. Ning Shu walked over and looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua's face and eyes were no longer confused, probably because he had experienced a lot. Instead, he looked more determined. Long time no see. Xiaohua greeted Ning Shu and poured him a glass of water. Ning Shu asked, where did you go to play? Well, I went to a lot of places and worlds, Xiaohua said. Brother Panchen took me to a lot of places. Where is he? He was taken away by someone in black. It was probably the granduncle. With Panchen's temper, no one could control him. These two stones have been hanging around my neck. The color has changed a little. Xiaohua took off the two stones around his neck. Before, they were ordinary stones. Now, they seemed to have been rubbed off, revealing the color of jade inside. What the hell was this? It didn't look like light or darkness. Could it be an ordinary piece of jade? She had such high expectations for these two stones. And they weren't pure jade. Ning Shu put the stones around Xiaohua's neck. You should keep wearing them. Some of the skin was still there. Xiaohua lowered his head and looked at the stone. Ziqing said you were looking for this urgently. The main thing is to see what this thing has become. Now that I've seen it, there's no need to rush. Ning Shu ordered some dishes and said to Little Fire, eat. Auntie is treating. I can't call you Auntie. I'll call you Big Sister. Calling you Auntie makes you old, the Fire said. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and glanced at Mei Ziqing. It wasn't that he was afraid of calling her old, but that he was afraid of being separated by seniority. It seemed that he had grown quite a bit after going out. Xiaohua picked up some food for Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing smiled, looking a little worried. Ning Shu understood Mei Ziqing's feelings. If he didn't return, he would be worried. Now that he was back, he would have to neglect Xiaohua due to the amount of missions he had to complete. Ning Shu was worried about Mei Ziqing. Ning Shu asked Xiaohua, what are you going to do next? Xiaohua glanced at Mei Ziqing, thought for a while, and said, I've decided to travel around. It's good to travel around. Broaden your horizons, Mei Ziqing said. Xiaohua pursed his lips and said, if I come back, will you still welcome me? Of course. You can come back anytime. I can't hold you back. You know our job, Mei Ziqing said helplessly. Especially recently she was under a lot of pressure. I don't want to make things difficult for you. Xiaohua smiled at Mei Ziqing. Ning Shu didn't know why, but he felt like cold dog food was slapped on his face. He hadn't been fed dog food for a long time. He wasn't used to it. Anyway, the meal was a little awkward. Mei Ziqing was especially awkward, especially facing the mature Xiaohua. The atmosphere was awkward. When Ning Shu was paying the bill, he thought for a while and said to the manager, Manager, I'll leave you my contact number. If you meet a man in red who looks like me, you can give him this number. That's right. Low-level mission enforcers couldn't use the chat system. Whatever, he left his contact number. He wondered how Liren was doing with his mission. Had he been killed? Ning Shu gave the shopkeeper another 5 merit points as a service fee. The three of them left the restaurant together. Mei Ziqing said goodbye to Ning Shu and prepared to leave with Xiaohua. Xiaohua said to Ning Shu, Sister, I have something to talk to you about. Can we talk alone? Ning Shu nodded. Sure. Now that Xiaohua was mature, he should be able to understand the logic of the conversation. Mei Ziqing looked at the two of them in confusion and asked, What can the two of you have to talk about? Wait for me here. I have something to say to my sister, Xiaohua said to Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing could only nod and watch the two of them walk to the other side. They were some distance away and couldn't hear what they were talking about. Ning Shu looked at Xiaohua, who was much taller than him, and asked with a smile, "What do you want to talk to me about?" Xiaohua said, "I have something to ask of you. But I can only be thick-skinned and ask you to take care of Mei Ziqing. Mei Ziqing and I are friends. I will take care of her if I can." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at him. "You're so worried about her?" "I'm worried. I've been to many worlds. Some of them are very scary. You mission enforcers are in danger in different worlds. Mei Ziqing will always be worried if I'm by her side. I don't want to make things difficult for her," Xiaohua said. "You're quite sensible. I'll do as I see fit." "Thank you, sister." Xiaohua took out some stones and said, "These stones were found by Pan Qin. Pan Qin likes to eat all kinds of stones. I think they have some energy. Keep them." Ning Shu looked at the stones in Xiaohua's hand. They were all ordinary stones. He took them and nodded. "Thank you, sister. I'll take care of Mei Ziqing." Mei Ziqing needs the world's origin. You'll be traveling everywhere. If you see a world's origin, keep it for her, Ning Shu said. But some world's origin is very dangerous. It's more important to stay alive. Xiaohua nodded. Mei Ziqing's ears were sharp. When she saw Ning Shu and Xiaohua coming over, she pretended to be indifferent. She didn't seem to be in a good mood. Once he returned to the system space, Ning Shu's chat system started ringing. Ning Shu opened it. It was all from Mei Ziqing asking him what happened between him and Xiaohua. Xiaohua's thoughts were deep. Even Mei Ziqing couldn't tell what he was thinking. She felt that he had changed, but she also felt that he hadn't. Mei Ziqing wasn't suspicious of Ning Shu's relationship with Xiaohua. She just wanted to know what the two of them were talking about. Ning Shu played with the pebble that Xiaohua gave him. He looked at it in the light. It was just an ordinary pebble. /BK. Chapter 25:15. Ning Shu ignored Mei Ziqing's message. Messages kept flooding the screen. Ning Shu, Xiaohua said I won't tell you. I'll let you scratch your heart and lungs. Mei Ziqing, Ning Shu said to 2333, go do the mission. 2333, do the system mission? Ning Shu, maybe next time. Didn't he just do it? Why did he have to do it again? He wanted everyone to do the system mission. Not every system was as weak and stupid as the world. Oh, 2333 said disappointedly and teleported Ning Shu to the world. As soon as Ning Shu merged with his body, he felt like his body was hit by something. He couldn't even turn around. It hurt. His whole body was numb. Ning Shu opened his eyes and found himself in a dormitory. There was a metal bed with a bed frame and 2 beds. Around him was the sound of sleeping. Ning Shu wanted to move his neck but found that his neck couldn't move. It hurt. He touched his neck and found that the joints were severely dislocated. Ning Shu. She was afraid of death, so she possessed a dead person. Her neck was about to break. She was obviously going to die. Ning Shu started to receive the storyline. The client was a 15-year-old girl. She was in a completely closed school. The school management was very strict. The client's neck was crooked because she wanted to escape and leave the school. She was punished by the instructor and twisted her neck. The client fell to the ground and broke her neck. However, she wasn't forgiven. As long as she wasn't dead, she had to continue the mission. Even if she fainted, she had to be fed water to wake her up. The client's mother tricked her into coming to the school. She said that she was on a trip to visit relatives. Then she was dragged in and couldn't come out anymore. What her mother wanted was a well-behaved and sensible daughter with good grades when she left school. If you don't listen, I'll beat you until you listen. If you don't listen, I'll beat you to death. Even if you don't listen, you'll listen. A bird without wings can't fly far. How can a bird without its vocal cords chirp? In reality, the girl that Ning Shu had possessed was already dead. Ning Shu touched his neck. It was really painful. If his head landed on the ground like this, his neck would be broken. Ning Shu touched the corner of his mouth. There were traces of blood flowing out. His body was beginning to vomit blood. The parents were sick, but they forced their children to take medicine. The children in there would no longer have any dignity. They would be treated as criminals even though they had not committed a crime. They had to eat dirty food, pay money, and suffer. The walls of the school were built by these children. Everything was done to nurture the child's hard-working spirit. The client ran away and wanted to see her mother. She begged her mother to take her. She resented her mother for sending her to such a place. Did he have to be treated like this because he was tired of learning and rebellious? These parents who were unable to discipline their children pinned their hopes on such an organization, saying that it was for the good of their children. Ning Shu felt a metallic taste in his throat. He couldn't stop vomiting blood, but he couldn't move his neck. The blood flowed down his neck and wet the blanket. People always said that the world was beautiful and that there was very little darkness. However, as parents, they sent their children to such an institution. Maybe the parents hated children who didn't listen to them. They used such a method to destroy the children's self-confidence and independence. They wanted to make them submit to violence and become slaves. These parents would rather break the foundation of their children than accept their children's disobedience. They wanted an obedient child, but they ended up with a slave who was obedient because of fear. Perverted parents, they were all narcissistic and treated themselves as emperors. Everything was right. The children were young and didn't know anything. They wanted to control everything. What they didn't approve of was wrong. They didn't allow their children to go against their will. If a child was disobedient, they could use any method to make the child obedient. It didn't matter if the child was injured physically or mentally. It didn't matter if it violated human relations. There were too many such children in this school. The children had to bear the consequences of their parents' incompetence. The children made life complete. They were tools to carry on the family line. They were tools to help realize their dreams. They could be molded into whatever they wanted. They didn't even know how to respect their children. Who gave these parents the courage to raise an independent life with personality? In this world, all jobs needed to be verified. However, parents didn't. Anyone could become a father. Hell was empty. Demons were in the human world. Ning Shu felt her head hurt more and more. Her soul was about to leave her body at any time. Her body was already dead and couldn't hold her soul anymore. Ning Shu quickly cultivated. No matter what, it was fine as long as this body didn't die. If she didn't have a body, how was she going to complete the mission? The client's mother probably didn't know that her daughter was going through all this in school. If she knew, she would probably tell the so-called teachers to beat her if she didn't listen. They were both living under the sun. They were separated by a wall and were in two different worlds. The spiritual energy in the modern world was pitifully little. Ning Shu cultivated for a long time but didn't absorb any spiritual energy. Her body's aura was getting weaker and weaker. The main thing was that her neck was crooked and her brain was lacking oxygen. If this continued, she would really die. If she wanted to use the power of the law, she could at least condense a drop of emerald green water to protect her body. However, she couldn't use the power of the law. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. It seemed like this was a low-level world. However, the client's identity was still a minor. This increased the difficulty of the mission. Especially now, she was half dead. She was punished by the instructor and couldn't go to the hospital. It would be a little difficult to survive. Ning Shu stuffed a fasting pill into her mouth with difficulty. To ensure that her body was nourished, the fasting pill melted in her mouth. If she ate something, she couldn't even swallow it. The school didn't find a doctor for her and didn't send her to the hospital. She couldn't get up and couldn't leave. It was really too hopeless. Ning Shu had to thank himself for the habit of exchanging fasting pills and medicine. Otherwise, in this situation, not to mention the mission, she would have died. The mission was over. After eating the fasting pill, her body's condition still didn't improve. She was still vomiting blood. Her body was getting colder and colder. It was the kind of coldness of a dead person. The client gave up all her spiritual energy to counterattack. As for the content of the counterattack, she wasn't sure. As long as she was satisfied, she would give up all of her spiritual energy. Under this kind of torment, there was no longer any trace of familial love and happiness left in his heart. It should be dawn soon. Ning Shu was a little anxious. This school was run by the military. She had to wake up early in the morning for morning exercises. If she was late, she would face all kinds of punishment and training. /BK. Chapter 25:16. These problematic children, such as puppy love, addiction, dislike of learning, and all kinds of intolerable problems in the eyes of adults, all became obedient children here. Her current body really couldn't withstand the torment. If she did it again, she would definitely die. However, these teachers wouldn't care about these things. Ning Shu touched his deformed bones and wanted to straighten them directly, but the second injury was likely to cause him to lose his life. There was little spiritual energy, and the law seemed to be unable to be used. Ning Shu deeply felt this kind of despair that these children felt. Hell on earth, pain and helplessness. Only obedience and fear occupied all the hearts. Slaves dominated by fear. Ning Shu stuffed 2 pills into his mouth and swallowed them with difficulty. He kept vomiting blood. In addition to Ning Shu, there were already people here who wanted to escape and jumped to their deaths. There were also people who drank toilet cleaner and cut their wrists. Ning Shu struggled to form a seal and arranged a spirit-gathering array to gather spiritual energy. The violent power of the fire sun couldn't repair the body at all. Instead, it would damage the body. Fortunately, this school was built in a relatively remote place and not in the city. There was a little bit of spiritual energy, but the whole school was shrouded in an invisible resentment and fear, making people unable to breathe and suffocate. Ning Shu slowly absorbed the spiritual energy, but the resentment that shrouded the school made him feel very uncomfortable. It was as if he had inhaled this resentment. His mood became very heavy and even desperate. Nothing could be done, nothing could be changed. That kind of despair and helplessness made Ning Shu feel a little irritable. He even wanted to give up such a mission. This atmosphere and the remnant despair of the entrusted person affected Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu silently chanted the clear heart incantation to ease the various unhappiness in his heart. Sometimes, he even had the mood to just jump off the building and end it all. However, these thoughts were suppressed by Ning Shu. He cultivated until it was almost time to get up. There was only a strand of spiritual energy in his body, the size of a strand of hair, all used to repair the bruise on his neck. His neck could move a little, but he was still vomiting blood. Could it be that his internal organs were injured? Ning Shu used his spiritual force to scan his body and took some anti-inflammatory medicine. How was this world supposed to complete quests? Just like the previous world, it was a world without wishes. Recently, he had been doing such missions. Just as dawn broke over the horizon, a series of rapid whistles suddenly rang out in the quiet school. The whistles were sharp and the sound traveled far and wide. As soon as the whistle sounded, the entire dormitory began to stir. The children who had been sleeping soundly before immediately woke up. Like zombies who had been switched on, they quickly put on their clothes and went to gather. Ning Shu struggled to get up. His head was swaying, and he almost vomited. He climbed down from the bed, put on the prison uniform, and ran towards the field. Many children ran past him as if there was a ghost behind them. Ning Shu also sped up. He felt that his brain was shaking. However, as the last person to arrive, he was bound to be punished. It was either corporal punishment or physical training. If he didn't die from running, it would be considered a dereliction of duty by the instructor. Soon, these children arrived at the field at the designated time. Each and every one of them was well-behaved and expressionless. The instructor's hand was holding a steel bar that was as thick as a thumb. This kind of steel bar would cause severe pain when it hit a person. Moreover, it was solid. You stand out. The instructor pointed the dragon whip at a girl. This girl's face was filled with great fear. That kind of fear was as if she was facing an endless hell. I told you to stand out. Didn't you hear me? The instructor said with a straight face. The girl hurriedly stood out. Her whole body was shaking like a sieve. What did you say to Li Zhen? Do you know that in school, boys and girls can't be too close? You forgot the rules. Speak loudly. What are the rules? The instructor stood in front of the girl. The girl was so scared that her face was distorted. She trembled and said, "Respect the teacher. Boys and girls should keep a distance." Puppy love is not allowed. Didn't come here. Take off her clothes and lie on the bench. The instructor pointed at a boy. It was Li Zhen who had spoken to the girl. In order to avoid being punished, Li Zhen did as he was told. The girl was sobbing. The cold morning air was suffocating. No one dared to breathe. The solid steel bar hit the girl's body and immediately turned purple. The girl suppressed her sobs and said loudly, "I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." Being naked in front of so many people, the girl's dignity was gone. The other children were indifferent. No one dared to stand out. If they stood out, they would be punished. That kind of painful torture was enough to destroy the pity and sympathy in the children's hearts. Ning Shu felt that his delicate neck could not support his head. His head was buzzing. It was really uncomfortable. This kind of discomfort was like facing death. It was especially painful. After doing missions for so long, Ning Shu rarely faced such an uncomfortable and passive situation. The main reason was that this body was not strong enough. There were many methods that he could not use. The 5 planks were quickly over. The girl's face was already pale. She struggled to get up. She was punished by the instructor to kneel in front of the statue of Confucius. Confucius. Could these people also be considered as teachers of exemplary learning? After punishing the disobedient children, it was time for morning exercises. Ning Shu, who was running, wanted to die. His neck and brain were hurting. The girl who was being punished had been kneeling in front of the statue of Confucius. She even had to straighten her back. When Ning Shu ran past, he glanced at her from the corner of his eye. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat and her face was pale. However, the instructor was still holding a solid steel bar. Using this kind of thing to hit people, Ning Shu felt that he had never seen such a thing in his dissolute life. There were only things that could not be thought of. There was nothing that could not be done. His head really hurt. Ning Shu was also covered in cold sweat from running. However, he could not be hit by the steel bar. If it happened again, he would really die. Even she had such thoughts. In order to not be punished, the frightened children would of course be obedient. The morning exercises were finally over. Everyone walked into the cafeteria to eat breakfast under the gaze of the instructor and teachers. When Ning Shu saw these dishes, she felt uncomfortable all over. There were actually handkerchiefs used to scrub the wok or aluminum wires used to scrub the wok in the dishes. The food had a foul smell. It was even worse than being in prison. Even if they were in prison, they still had some human rights. However, the children here had their self-esteem completely destroyed. They had nothing. They only had a numb and obedient body. They were good children, obedient children. They would do whatever they were told. They would not be rebellious, fall in love early, smoke, or be addicted to games. /BK. Chapter 25:17. Ning Shu had already eaten the fasting pill, so he was unable to swallow such food. The smell was unbearable. However, the teachers and instructors were glaring at him from the side. If he didn't eat, he would be punished. In any case, snacks couldn't be eaten here, except for these unclean food that had been spiked with hormones. Ning Shu braced himself and drank the rancid porridge. Then the class started. The girl was still kneeling in front of the Confucius statue. Her back was straight, and the children who passed by her hurriedly passed by, not even daring to look at her. This was especially so for the boys. Once they found out that a girl and a boy were talking, or if there were signs of an ambiguous puppy love, they would be forcefully cut off and receive the harshest punishment. The class was quiet. All the children were listening to the teacher on the podium with numb expressions. The most terrifying thing was that the teacher would do spot checks and ask the children to answer questions. Because if the answer was wrong, there would be punishment. You would be hit in the heart because you weren't paying attention, so you couldn't answer the questions. The teacher's questions were all questions of death. To these teachers and instructors, if these children didn't change, they would become the dregs of society when they grew up. They would be trash, useless trash. To deal with these problem children, no matter what they did, it wouldn't be too much. They had to use unconventional methods to straighten these children. Ning Shu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He was absorbing the spirit qi, but his body's condition was getting worse. These children all needed to turn around, right? Why couldn't she pick one with a better body? In this situation, if something went wrong, she might lose her life. Maybe these teachers and instructors didn't want to kill anyone, but their actions caused these children to suffer the pain and fear of not being able to live. Why did this kind of organization exist? It was because of the sick parents. The website promoted and operated these organizations. Even if something went wrong, there would still be an endless stream of parents sending their children here. Some parents felt that their children had really changed. They had become a different person. They had become obedient and sensible, exactly the same as the good children in their hearts. Ning Shu came to this world and didn't say a word. These children basically didn't know how to speak. They would pass by indifferently and wouldn't greet each other. Especially between the opposite sex, they wouldn't speak and would stay far away. Otherwise, it would be considered puppy love. Ning Shu spent the whole day in a daze. His body couldn't take it anymore. When he returned to the dormitory late, the toilet in the dormitory was blocked. The teacher found a student who was not performing well and directly used his hands to flush the toilet. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu was sweating profusely as he looked at the girl who was sobbing while sobbing. Her whole body stank. Ning Shu was probably sweating. He could feel a chill seeping through his bones and his fingertips. Her body started to cool down. Ning Shu was very conflicted. With a dead body, would she become a skeleton like Li Si? Ning Shu hurriedly climbed onto his bed and began to cultivate. Every day, he was only free to sleep for 6 or 7 hours, so he didn't have to worry about being punished. Ning Shu placed his hands on his neck and began to cultivate. A whistle sounded, and everyone quickly climbed onto their beds and covered themselves with blankets to sleep. The girl who was punished during the day hid under her blankets and cried. No matter how hard she tried to suppress her voice, the sound of her sobbing still echoed in the small dormitory. In addition to the sound of crying, there was also a strong smell of feces in the dormitory. The smell of the girl who dug the toilet couldn't be washed away. Ning Shu felt that the resentment in the entire dormitory was about to form a thick and visible resentment. If this school existed for another 100 or 200 years, the resentment would turn into ghosts. Ning Shu had to recite the clear heart incantation while cultivating. This kind of despair was contagious, and it was passed on from one to another. Ning Shu used the little bit of spirit energy that he had cultivated with great difficulty to repair his body. His neck was itchy and painful. The feeling was simply ecstasy. After cultivating for a night, it didn't feel long before the sun rose again. Yesterday's days were repeated, day after day, year after year. Moreover, the school fees were extremely expensive. They ate pig food like slop. They also had to build walls to train the child's spirit of being hardworking. Anyway, Ning Shu's head was about to explode when he was carrying bricks. He felt that his head was about to roll off his neck. The resources were rationally used, the physical work was done, and the food was still the same. Ning Shu didn't eat much because he had fasting pills. However, the other children still had to eat the dishcloth from their food because they were hungry. There was nothing else to eat except these. Ning Shu felt that the parents who sent their children to this kind of place must be very resentful of their children. Even if they knew that they would be beaten, they would still say that it was better to be beaten than to play truant. Because underage children didn't have the ability to survive and couldn't resist their parents, they relied on their parents to survive. The children who couldn't survive could only be sent to this kind of special school by their parents for various reasons. Even these so-called rebellious children had been sent here. If they were really rebellious, they wouldn't be here. The sun was high in the sky, but she had to carry bricks. Some half-grown children were actually very skilled in building walls. They were like machines that only knew how to build walls. They were very fast, afraid that they would have to undergo additional training if they slowed down. They couldn't go out here, and their parents couldn't visit them. Even if they went out, they couldn't defame the school, and they couldn't say anything that was unfavorable to the school. This was simply a camp, and they were sent here with money. The children who came here, even if they were fat before, became thin. Fear, physical punishment, and more than 12 hours of physical work, physical training, and class time. Even in ancient times, it wasn't like this. Finally, it was the afternoon break. Ning Shu could finally drink some water and think about how to complete the mission. There were instructors around watching these children. Ning Shu stared straight at the cup of water. There was a commotion over there. It was said that a boy was caught smoking in the toilet, and now he was going to be taken off his clothes and locked in a small dark room. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. These parents would never know what their children were going through in there. Even if they knew, they wouldn't have any opinions. If they were disobedient, they would just beat them. They must have done something wrong to be punished. Anyway, in the face of so-called authority, people's brains wouldn't work. They blindly believed in authority. Would this body be able to recover? The school's security measures were quite strong. Escaping for a short period of time was not possible. Ning Shu wiped his sweat. Death had always shrouded him. It was obviously a wall, but it divided the world into two different worlds. You were enjoying your golden years on the other side of the wall, and I was like hell on earth on the other side. /BK. Chapter 25-28. Every minute and every second felt like years. There was no hope. After coming to this world for 2 days, Ning Shu felt that these days were more painful than picking up trash. Especially when he was in a dead body. 2333's voice sounded in his mind. The client has given up all her soul power. After the mission is completed, she will not return to this world and will choose to reincarnate. She said that she does not want to be a child of her parents anymore. She also said that she is watching you. If you are not satisfied with what you do, she will give you a bad review. 2333 said. This child, if she left, this body would be completely dead, and so would the person. If the client did not come back, Ning Shu had less to worry about. It was hard not to think about what would happen after the client came back. He could do whatever he wanted. After all, this body was going to die. Ning Shu now looked forward to the night because only then would she have time to cultivate, repair her body, and have a little more freedom. When he was training his mind, Ning Shu felt that he was surrounded by resentment and despair every day. Some children who had a mental breakdown would directly jump down from the building. Once night fell, Ning Shu would not sleep. He would use all his time to cultivate and repair his body. Because of his current body, a little physical punishment might even kill him. Ning Shu was cultivating when he felt the person sleeping in the lower bunk get up and go to the toilet. Ning Shu did not pay much attention to it. After all, it was normal to wake up at night. After a while, the girl in the lower bunk still did not come back, and Ning Shu smelled blood. There was blood. Thinking of a terrible thing, Ning Shu quickly got out of bed and went to the toilet. He saw the girl holding a fork and stabbing her wrist until it was bloody. When students arrived at school, all their belongings would be confiscated. Communication tools such as mobile phones were not allowed to be on them. Some dangerous items would be confiscated. Putting away the fork meant that she already had thoughts of suicide. Stabbing her wrist with the fork, blood flowed all over the floor. Ning Shu recognized this girl. She was the girl who was publicly stripped and beaten with a solid steel bar. She also knelt in front of the statue of Confucius for a long time. Ning Shu hurriedly found clothes from the closet and pressed them on her wrist. He woke up a girl and asked her to quickly find someone. Someone had committed suicide. However, the girl who was shaken awake by Ning Shu was very cold. She was very resistant to looking for him, or rather, she didn't dare to. Even if someone died in front of them, these children would not dare to say anything. Ning Shu touched her neck. Her poor neck was really full of misfortune. Ning Shu came down the stairs and shook the metal door, saying that someone was injured and that they should be sent to the hospital immediately. Soon, the dormitory manager, instructor, and teacher came and carried the girl away. However, they didn't send him to the hospital. Instead, they found some medicine and applied it on his wound. It wasn't very honorable for such a thing to happen in school, so it was hastily dealt with. Of course, this girl didn't die. She was stabbing randomly with a fork. Even if she hurt her hand tendons, she wouldn't be taken to the hospital. They were even more afraid to sign a notice of critical illness and inform the student's family. Without the signature, the hospital could only treat the patient as an ordinary patient. Ning Shu felt a chill in his bones. His body was probably going to die. How could this person be so vicious to her own child? Her own child? Even after such a thing happened, the school was still the same as before. However, this girl who committed suicide was criticized by the whole school. The child who attempted suicide had to face another death by dismemberment. Even a criminal wouldn't be so excessive. Ning Shu wondered if he should use this dying body to do something sensational. Anyway, this body couldn't hold on for much longer. Why not pull the school's principal and jump down together? They could accompany each other on the road to the netherworld. However, everything that existed had its value. Why did this kind of institution exist? It was because there was a market demand. Those parents who couldn't discipline their own children needed such an institution. They wanted others to teach their children to be obedient. With a market demand, this kind of institution would only sprout up everywhere. Ning Shu didn't want to stay in this world anymore. His body wasn't well to begin with. Every day, he had to run and carry bricks. It was like a labor reform. He had to think of a way to let these dear parents experience this wonderful education. Anyway, if this kind of institution could educate children to be good children, then it could also make these parents qualified to be good parents. These parents would no longer be tyrannical and impatient. They would definitely quit smoking, playing cards, drinking, gambling, and drugs. They would become perfect parents to their children. A light bulb lit up in Ning Shu's mind. He thought of an operation. It was very difficult to operate, and his body didn't have any strength at all. If he wanted to use such a heaven-defying array, Ning Shu felt that he might be struck by lightning. However, Ning Shu's heart was restless. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was a good idea. It needed strength, but he didn't have any strength at all. His body was half dead. Ning Shu thought in his heart. Of course, he was also paying attention to the situation around him. If he was distracted, a solid steel bar would be whipped by a dragon whip. This kind of beating was worse than death. There was nothing to live for. After a hit, he wouldn't dare to turn over for a long time. These children had visible and invisible scars all over their bodies. Not to mention mental trauma. If he didn't have any strength, then he could use the power of the soul. The power of the soul wouldn't lose to any strength. Doing a mission was not enough to make ends meet. Even if the person who commissioned him really gave all of his power of the soul, he probably wouldn't be able to fill the hole in her mission. Fortunately, there was soul fluid. There was an additional income. When this mission was completed, he could go back and deal with the 9 Palace Mountain. It was very difficult to set up such an array. This was because the school's surveillance was watching the students' every word and action. Furthermore, Ning Shu had to collect the students' hair or fingernails. In any case, it had to be something close to them. It was fine if it was a female student, but if it was a male student, she couldn't even get close. Girls were afraid of boys, and boys were afraid of girls. Once she got close, she would be suspected of being in love. Ning Shu wanted to curse in his heart. He wanted to jump up and shout with the loudspeaker. Who didn't have a fantasy when they were young? Once they got close, they would be in love. In ancient times, these children would be talking about marriage. The collection work progressed very slowly. The energy needed to set up the array almost drained Ning Shu's soul. However, when he thought of the interesting scene if he succeeded, Ning Shu thought that good things were strewn with setbacks. He would eventually succeed. He had to finish everything before this body couldn't hold on anymore. Fortunately, he could still use his mental power. Otherwise, the collection work would be at a loss. /BK Chapter 25-29. He couldn't use the law, and Ning Shu couldn't hide himself either. Setting up a huge array also required him to avoid surveillance. To be honest, it was very difficult to complete the task without any power. Even if he completed it and successfully destroyed this place, such an organization would still exist. Because there was a need, there would be related benefits. For parents, they were powerless or unable to discipline their children. Now that someone could discipline their children for them and make their children better, it was like a life-saving straw. Even if they knew that it would hurt the children, the worst-case scenario could not be worse. For children, this was a place where they suffered physical and mental trauma. Here, They endured unbearable torture, were beaten, and had their self-esteem humiliated. They had no right to choose, or they would face an even more painful and embarrassing situation. They watched indifferently as the people around them were punished. They were glad that they were not punished and were afraid that they would be punished. They wouldn't think about whether it was right or not. Ning Shu held his head and sneaked around every day. It was very likely that he would be caught. Who knew what kind of punishment he would receive if he was caught? Ning Shu felt that such militarized management was close to a crazy state. It was necessary to turn them into adults. These problem students had been labeled as javelins. When they grew up, they would be the scum of society. They would be the scum of society and would be trained to be perfect and obedient. Without power, Ning Shu's work of collecting hair or nails was very slow. He secretly used his mental strength to pull out hair and had to collect it properly. He also had to remember who had pulled out hair and who had not. Ning Shu felt that his whole person was not very good. However, his body was very uncomfortable, and there was not enough spirit energy to repair the damaged body. Ning Shu felt that his head would fall off at any time. Boy's hair was very short. If he didn't pay attention, it would fall off and he couldn't find it. Girls had short hair that reached their ears, and boys had flat hair. They were not allowed to have fashionable hairstyles and wore strange clothes. Collecting these hairs every day made Ning Shu's head explode. This body was about to die, but Ning Shu was dragging it on. Anyway, when the client's mother came, he would let her have a taste of the pain of dying. If the child was disobedient, did not have good grades, and was disobedient and unfilial, these parents would be worried to death. They would lose face and feel helpless. How could there be love? There was only hatred. Ning Shu made himself perform better. He didn't want to make any mistakes or stand out so that the teachers and instructors wouldn't notice him. It wasn't a big deal to play some tricks in private. Ning Shu picked the one who was the most talkative and seemed to be earnestly advising everyone all day long, saying that if they did not work hard, they would be the scum of society and become trash who stole and swindled. He decided to temporarily use this person as a soul carrier. Every time they heard the teacher say that, none of the students objected. This was because they had to respect the teacher here. The teacher was always doing it for their own good. Their parents sent them here for their own good. If he retorted or resisted, he would be punished and trained. Running and jumping were easy, but the worst thing was being hit with solid steel bars. In order to avoid punishment, all the children would do whatever they were told. If this was obedience, then it didn't matter. If they didn't talk back, they wouldn't be punished. Ning Shu felt that even if these children went out, they would be different from the children outside. They would be cold and numb, and even their last bit of self-esteem would be dismembered. When such children entered society, they could really become the high and mighty children that their parents talked about. They could do a high-class job with a high salary, find a fairy-like wife, and live in a high-end neighborhood. Ning Shu felt that it was a little difficult. Everything here was constantly reminding these children that they were the scum of society. They were different from ordinary children. When a child suffered something, he would be afraid. He would even imitate and have violent tendencies. The influence of the original family had a huge impact on a child. When a girl was born into a family that valued boys over girls, she would also value boys over girls. She would see herself as a projection. In the future, she wouldn't love her daughter who was also a female. She might even see her daughter as a disgrace. Here, they would do whatever they were told to do. They would study hard and couldn't play games because it wasn't allowed. Walking among such people every day, Ning Shu felt that he was walking among a group of zombies. Wasn't he just a walking corpse? These children didn't kill anyone, and they didn't commit any crimes. However, they had even less dignity than criminals. Even if they paid attention to humanism for criminals and even abolished the death penalty, why were they so cruel to these children? Was it because they were really hopeless? Ning Shu sped up his collection work. He was really tired. His body was very tired. He stayed up all night to cultivate, but he couldn't cultivate any spiritual energy. Ning Shu felt that he was about to become a big shot in the immortal sect. His body was very heavy. Every day, he had to run and exercise. When he was free, he had to move bricks. He also didn't eat well. If it wasn't for the fasting pills, Ning Shu felt that he might have already died. However, he had to persevere and let this body live a little longer. He would definitely let the client's mother feel a different kind of pleasure. Ning Shu didn't dare to be too ostentatious. He was afraid that the teachers and instructors would stare at him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do anything. He had been here for more than 10 days to half a month. The client's mother didn't come to see him, nor did she call him. The school didn't allow it. The school was afraid that the students would say something to the parents. If the parents didn't meet the parents' requirements, wouldn't that ruin the school's reputation? After waiting for another year or so, the parents would be able to face a brand new child. This was a pleasant surprise. The school fees here were very expensive. If the problem was serious, they would have to stay here for a year or half a year. The school fees were 30 to 40,000 yuan for half a year. If the family's conditions were good, the money didn't matter. If the family's conditions weren't good, it would be a bit difficult to take out 30 to 40,000 yuan. Giving money meant suffering. There were many children in the school. Ning Shu's collection work was very slow. He couldn't just walk over and say, "Give me a strand of your hair." This kind of abnormal behavior, the instructors and teachers might be able to interpret another meaning. The ancients had the habit of tying black hair. That was, a husband and wife would cut a bunch of hair and put it together. It meant that the husband and wife would grow old together. Was she going to say that she was in a puppy love again? Ning Shu, sister, is already in a relationship at dusk. When everything was ready, Ning Shu's face was a little green. It had the green color of a dead person. In the dead of night, Ning Shu hid in the bathroom. He took out his hair and used the lighter he stole from the cafeteria to ignite his hair. The hair curled up and turned into ashes, emitting the smell of burnt protein. Chapter 25-30. Ning Shu placed the ashes of her hair into a cup, pricked her finger, and dripped it into the ashes. Ning Shu drew out her soul force to draw the talisman. Soul force flowed out of her body continuously. Ning Shu felt her body getting weaker and weaker. Her soul and mind were unable to continue. She felt extremely uncomfortable and weak. After painstakingly finishing the last stroke of the talisman, Ning Shu's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and her face was as pale as paper. Once the talisman was completed, it emitted a weak luster and scattered the souls of the children in all directions. At the same time, the entire school was in a huge array. Under the effect of the soul force, the array began to slowly revolve and rise, finally enveloping the sky above the school. The sky was incomparably dark and silent. There was no sound at all, not even the sound of insects. It was as if there was no one there. Whether she could succeed or not depended on this. During this time, Ning Shu kept injecting her soul force into the array. The array slowly revolved in midair. This was a world that believed in science. To achieve such an effect, the cost was too great, and it was also heaven-defying. Ning Shu felt that the heavens were about to strike her. She waited for the threads to return and attract the souls. During this time, the array could not be broken. If it was broken, the soul attraction would fail. Moreover, it was a soul attraction with so many people. The number of souls required for the array was astonishing. Ning Shu felt that the array was continuously extracting her soul force. If she wanted to change it, she would have to pay a price. Now, it was consuming her soul force. Fortunately, her soul force was more resilient now. If it was in the past, her soul would have been sucked away, and not even a speck would be left. These faintly flickering threads brought back a soul. Each thread brought a soul. These souls were ignorant. When they went to sleep in the middle of the night, their souls left their bodies. Children were born from their parents. They were of the same origin, and the degree of soul fusion was the highest. Moreover, these children usually had a strong obsession in their hearts. The soul attraction would naturally attract the people they missed or hated. Moreover, Ning Shu limited it to parents. She quickly let these souls fuse into her body. Time was soul force. The operation of the array was constantly extracting her soul force. Ning Shu didn't know how much of his soul force had been sucked away. He just felt that his soul was very weak. A soul was standing in front of him. It was the client's mother. The client looked quite similar to her mother. Ning Shu left the body and allowed the client's mother to enter it. Her soul entered her body in a daze, and she fell to the ground softly. Although his soul had entered his body, he still needed to wait for a while before his soul could merge with his body. Otherwise, it would be easy for his soul to suddenly leave his body. In fact, there were certain side effects. Some children were not even 14 years old. Exchanging souls like this would wear and tear on their bodies. Ning Shu set the time, and when he saw that it was about time, it seemed that all the souls had completely fused. Then he retracted the formation. He wiped away the charms that had lost their effect on the ground. Ning Shu lowered his head and looked at his own soul. Emma was so weak. Almost half of her soul force had been extracted. This was something that couldn't be helped. There was no other way to replace it. She could only use her soul force. Now that Ning Shu didn't have a body, he was like a lonely ghost. Especially after doing such a thing. Exchanging souls was such a heaven-defying thing. He would definitely be struck by lightning. Ning Shu had to think of a way to hide. After a while, the whole dormitory building began to scream. Some people who woke up and saw where they were dumbfounded. Some people directly screamed, causing the entire building to be in an uproar. What's going on? Why am I here? Why am I in my daughter's body? This must be a dream. It was the same male dormitory. Compared to the female dormitory was filled with panic. The female dormitory was pointing at the sky and cursing the earth. What was going on? The commotion in the dormitory made the teachers, dormitory management, and instructors move out. Some of the instructors were holding solid steel bars in their hands. Whoever didn't listen would be beaten up. Ning Shu, who was in his soul form, looked at these people with a cold face. Finally, he didn't have to bear the pain of his body. The mother of the client who was lying in the toilet also woke up. When she woke up, she painfully covered her neck. It was very painful. She stood up and looked at the situation around her. Everyone was in a panic. What are you doing? Are you rebelling? Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? Why am I here? Teacher, I am Li Shanshan's mother. We have met before. I am Ma Xia's mother. I am. These parents who had their souls swapped all panicked and revealed their identity to the teacher and instructor. However, no one believed these people's words. Do you know the story of the boy who cried wolf? It's like running away. But are you pretending to be your parents and rebelling? The instructor and teacher said coldly. The teacher didn't believe these hopeless children at all. The first thing he thought was that these people were lying. As for why they were lying, it was simple. They wanted to run away. The conditions here were difficult. Some of the children who were used to being lazy naturally couldn't adapt. They wanted to run away at all times. Now, they even came up with such a big lie. What, I am the child's parent? Who would believe this kind of nonsense, especially now that everyone was saying so? It made the teacher and instructor feel that these children had discussed it beforehand. They wanted to cause a commotion and run away. Surrounded by the chattering children, the instructor sternly shouted that no commotion was allowed. For those who disobeyed, he directly hit them with solid steel bars. These people cried out in pain. The others suddenly quieted down. Seeing that the person who was beaten was in so much pain, their faces all turned ugly. One after another, they said, "Who are you? How dare you hit people? Do you know who I am? I paid your school, but you still hit people." The instructor just sneered at the person who spoke. "You are hopeless. Lock her in the small dark room." This girl was immediately pulled away. When she was pulled away, she even said that she wanted to complain about the school. What kind of attitude was that? This girl's parents were probably rich or influential people. Her words were especially arrogant. But in this kind of situation, her actions would only be regarded as rebellious, hopeless, arrogant, and despotic. She didn't look like a good child at all. Everyone go to the field to combine. It seems that you all have nothing to do. Drilling until daybreak. The instructor said coldly. These people ignored the instructor. In their hearts, they were puzzled and afraid. Why did they become their own children? Hurry up. The instructor saw that these people were lazy. None of them were serious. They were all fine before. Why did they suddenly rebound so much? They had clearly become obedient, but now they were all sloppy. Chapter 25:31. Hurry up. Does everyone have to receive the 5-dragon whip? The teachers and instructors were so angry that the veins on their foreheads popped out when they saw them like this. What the hell? The instructors didn't stand on ceremony. They took a pointer and an electric baton and hit these people directly. Go to the field and combine. Some people were in so much pain that their faces contorted. They shouted angrily, "This is a crime. What right do you have to hit people? Your parents sent you here, so we have to be responsible for you. As long as it's useful, go to the field and combine." Afraid of being beaten again, these girls went to the field. Some parents dragged their feet and didn't take the instructor's words to heart. In the end, the parents who went to the field were trained to do 50 push-ups. These parents were all people who had entered society. Even if they were gathered, they stood in a crooked manner. They gathered in 2s and 3s to talk about the current situation. The instructors didn't stand on ceremony. They took solid steel bars and hit these people's calves and stomachs. It was so painful that it was as if their muscles had been broken. "Fuck, what are you doing?" Some of the hot-tempered fathers were furious. The pain made them angry as they pointed at the instructors and cursed. Then they began to push and shout. The scene was chaotic and a fight broke out. These people felt like they were dreaming. They dreamed that they had become children. Furthermore, they were their own children who were being beaten in their dreams. However, the pain on their bodies was so real. It was excruciating. After being hit in the calves and stomachs, it hurt to walk. There were also some girls who used the way girls fought, scratching with their nails. However, in school, they weren't allowed to have long nails. They weren't allowed to use nail polish, much less manicure. Without such sharp nails, their combat strength was greatly reduced. In short, the scene was chaotic. Ning Shu sat by the flower bed and supported his chin as he watched the chaotic scene. When people were hurt, they had to resist. Resisting was to protect themselves. However, these children were required to accept these injuries. These parents were beaten until they screamed. Some of the girls even cried out. The chaos in the school attracted the attention of all the teachers and instructors. They all took action. With batons and solid steel bars, they joined the chaotic battle. There were cries of pain and curses. Seeing this scene, Ning Shu felt that it was not a waste for her to spend so much of her spiritual force to set up such an array. These parents were all people who had stepped into society. Some of them even had a relatively high social status and were respected by others. Being treated like this, their self-esteem and dignity were insulted, and the scene was extremely chaotic. If such a thing happened to their own child, they would only blame their own child and even say that it was a good beating. When it was their turn, they would fight back. When they were humiliated, they would fight back to regain their dignity. It wasn't only adults who had self-respect and dignity, and it wasn't only adults who had character. In the end, even the principal of the school was alerted. When Ning Shu saw the principal, he smiled. Boom! Ning Shu heard the sound of thunder in the sky. Ning Shu quickly turned into a drop of water and merged with the principal's body. Previously, they had chosen a teacher as the host, but now that the principal had appeared, the principal was naturally more suitable. Ning Shu merged into the principal's body in the form of a drop of water. He didn't snatch the principal's body, nor did he participate in any of the principal's decisions. Whether the principal decided to strengthen the education or punish these people, Ning Shu wouldn't interfere. After all, these people would be the ones suffering. At the same time, they avoided the heavenly punishment. The rumbling sounds were to kill her. These were all 15 or 16 years old children. They weren't adults yet. No matter how powerful they were still children. Moreover, the other party was tall and strong and had weapons in his hands. This farce lasted for a while before it ended. The instructor yelled that these people were hopeless, that they were trash, and that they would be useless scum in the future. No matter how they were taught, it would be useless. These parents had never been pointed at and scolded like this before. What trash? What scum? In short, Personal attacks were thrown at them. Some of the parents' faces turned cold. They felt that when they woke up, they would take their children away, drop them out of school and change schools. These parents didn't feel sorry for their children. They were angry at themselves for the pain they had suffered. Even if they felt sorry for their children, they were thinking of the best for their children. Children were young, and the rod made a filial son. However, when it happened to them, they were so angry. Some of the hot-tempered parents started to make a fuss again. A new round of chaos began. Some of the children had several bruises on their bodies. They were lying on the ground and couldn't get up. Under the suppression of absolute force, the chaos ended quickly. The instructor made everyone run around the field with weights. After running, they had to do frog jumps. Frog jumps were especially painful. The next day, the muscles in the legs would be so sore that they couldn't move. Going up and down the stairs would be so painful that they would cry. Even touching their legs would hurt. Of course, these parents wouldn't obediently run. Even if they wanted to exercise, it was under voluntary circumstances. How could they force people like this? Some of the hot-tempered parents even sneered and scolded, "I'm the one who pays the money. How dare you treat me like this?" What they got was a beating. For those who didn't run, a dragon whip would hit their legs and stomachs. Let's see if you still want to run. Jump up and run. Sparsely, some people began to run. It was human nature to hate work. These people usually didn't even know how to exercise. Suddenly, they were so tired that they started to pant. Ning Shu, who was in the principal's body, heard the rumbling of thunder. This kind of thunder couldn't be heard by others, but Ning Shu could. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. "Do you think I'm willing to lose my soul energy to do such a thing?" Ning Shu paid special attention to the client's mother. The client's mother was running at the back of the pack. She ran slower and looked like she was in pain. Her body was in pain, especially her neck, which hadn't recovered yet. When she ran, her head would sway and she would feel like vomiting. Moreover, she would sweat all over. Ning Shu felt pain even with this body, let alone ordinary people. "Run faster. Did you not eat?" The instructor shouted. Under the huge lights, groups of people didn't sleep at night and ran on the field. Some people were so tired that they sat on the ground and panted. Even if the body wasn't their own, they could still feel the pain they had to endure after entering this body. The client's mother ran to the side and started to vomit. However, there was nothing in her stomach. Ning Shu usually ate fasting pills. Usually, other than drinking water, there was nothing in his stomach. The client's mother supported herself against the wall and retched for a while. She was dizzy and her neck hurt when she moved. Not to mention running. She felt like her head was bouncing like a rubber ball. It was so painful that she felt like she was going to die. Her body was so heavy that she couldn't lift her feet. Chapter 25:32. If this was really a dream, they hoped that they could wake up quickly. It was really uncomfortable. "Get up and run. You haven't even finished half of it." The instructor came over with a steel bar. Those who were sitting on the ground could only get up and continue running. The steel bar was too painful when it hit them. The instructor and teachers looked at the children who were running. They were really disappointed. Previously, these children were very obedient and ran very fast. Why did it become like this? The principal was still watching at the side. Would he say that their work ability was not good enough and that they did not do their job well? In short, these teachers and instructors were cursing in their hearts. They felt that they had to train these children fiercely and let them return to their previous obedient and sensible state. Some of the children were about to leave school. If they were handed over to their parents like this, it would not only be a matter of reputation but also related to their own bonuses. The parents would rather their children be stupid. As long as they were obedient and did not annoy others, it would be fine. After running 10 rounds with difficulty, everyone felt as if there were needles in their lungs. It was so painful that they could not breathe. Now, 5 rounds of frog jump around the field. The instructor said, "I'll fucking jump. What the hell is this? I'm not doing it. I want to complain." Waves of cursing sounded. Everyone's emotions were high. It was fine that they had run away previously. Now they had to jump again before they could even catch their breath. If you want to jump, do it yourself. Some directly sat on the ground and lay on the ground panting. White light had already lit up the sky. The sky was going to be bright soon. The huge lights were not so glaring anymore. Those who thought that this was a dream saw that the sky was bright. They woke up. They closed their eyes and opened them again. They were still here. Surrounding them were teachers and instructors who were holding pointers and rulers. They looked fierce and were especially scary. Just thinking about those things hitting their bodies made them tremble. The instructors and teachers also felt very hopeless. These students were not easy to discipline. If they did not listen to them, then they would hit them. If they knew that it was painful, then they would naturally be obedient. Anyway, there were cries of pain everywhere. These people could only squat down and grab their own ankles and start frog jumping. It was especially painful. They kept muttering curses. At this moment, they hit them with the ruler. What are the school rules? Respect the teachers. If you scold again, you are simply scum. You don't even know how to respect the teachers. He was truly in despair. Couldn't he even say a few words? How could he respect his teacher? From afar, the leapers looked like a group of jumping frogs. She would not be able to withstand this kind of exercise after a few jumps, let alone 5 laps. She might not be able to get out of bed the next day. However, the teachers would always take a small notebook to record the mistakes of the students and slowly educate them in the future. The client's mother fainted. She was on the verge of collapsing. Her body was already feeling extremely uncomfortable. Under such intense exercise, her body couldn't take it anymore and she fainted. Don't pretend to be dead. If you're not dead, then continue. The instructor kicked her body. Every time she used the same excuse, it was annoying. He had seen too many of these people who were hopeless and full of lies, using illness as an excuse to avoid punishment. The client's mother woke up and pleaded, "Let me rest for a while. My head hurts and my neck hurts too. I think it's a stiff neck or a concussion." Even if he spoke too much, he would feel very sad. If you're not dead, then keep running. You don't have so many problems. Lazy people shit and pee a lot. The instructor said without hesitation and directly pulled her up. As soon as she was pulled up, her head began to sway and she retched. Ning Shu just looked at her. There should be some spiritual energy in that body, which could last for a while. However, without continuous spiritual energy, the body would die sooner or later. If Ning Shu hadn't come over, the body would have almost rotted by now. Everyone was leapfrogging. They were extremely tired. Just thinking about how long it would take to finish 5 laps in such a big field made them feel very desperate. They didn't know when the endless torture would end. When everyone finished 5 laps, many people's faces were pale and they didn't even want to speak. At this time, the sky was completely bright. The sun shone on the ground, bringing warmth to the earth. However, these people were cold all over and sweating. When the wind blew, goosebumps rose all over their bodies. When it was time for breakfast, everyone limped to the cafeteria. When they saw breakfast, some people immediately flipped the table. What is this for people to eat? Pig food? Is this for people to eat? Some people were already starving. They originally thought that the student meal wouldn't be so nutritious and would definitely be simple, but they never expected it to be this kind of food. Then what do you want to eat? Delicacies, abalone, bird's nest? You can eat whatever you're given here. You have to cultivate the spirit of being hardworking. The teacher looked coldly at the people who popped up. Everyone was so hungry that they were grumbling, but in the face of such food, they really couldn't eat. Many people who came from wealthy families couldn't eat this kind of food. Many people didn't eat. Anyway, if you don't want to eat, then forget it. After breakfast, it was time to go to class again. These adults had already returned some knowledge to the teacher. For some people who weren't very educated, learning these things was simply torture. Listening to the teacher talk about these things was like listening to a heavenly book. Everyone was not in the right state. When the teacher asked questions, they couldn't answer at all. If they couldn't answer, they would be beaten with a ruler and taught a few words. If they didn't study well, they would be a cripple in the future and the dregs of society. If this was a dream, then it was too real. It was very painful and unbearable. After class, it was time for free activities. Everyone started to move bricks and build walls to cultivate the spirit of being hardworking. If there was really no way out, then they would move bricks in the future to familiarize themselves with the work in advance. These parents felt that it was worth it to leave their children in such a place, but it was a little uncomfortable that the pain was happening to them. No, it was very uncomfortable. They were often beaten and scolded, and if they weren't careful, they would attack them personally. Now they had to build walls to cultivate the spirit of being hardworking. This reason was simply impeccable, but why did it feel so bitter? They felt that it was wrong, but they couldn't refute it. What? You can't even do this kind of thing. If you can't even eat and cry, how can you be successful in the future? Doing these things is to cultivate you to be hardworking. Their stomachs were rumbling with hunger, and now they had to build walls with bricks. They were really tired and bitter and wanted to cry. Especially some girls. Now that their core had become female comrades, under the hot sun, carrying bricks and building walls with hungry stomachs, they were on the verge of crying. And on what basis did they have to build walls for free? They had paid for it, but now they were actually allowed to work for free. On what basis? There was no such logic? They had placed their children here to educate the children, not to educate them. Moreover, they didn't say that they would let the children do these things. Chapter 25:33. These parents didn't expect their children to suffer like this in school. Although the children were very unwilling to come here, they were just being willful, lazy, naughty, and unbearable. It was good for them to suffer a little. Many of these parents had never built a wall before and didn't even know how to do it. The instructor couldn't bear to look at them. What were they doing? Why did they suddenly become like this? Could they be serious? Could they do things properly? Hurry up and start moving. Some parents held a brick in one hand and a shovel in the other. There was cement beside their feet and they hurriedly built the wall. The cement was everywhere. Clumsy and useless. Things that they didn't understand, things that they didn't know how to do, yet they wanted the children to be omniscient. What are you doing? You're doing it on purpose, aren't you? You're so naughty that you can't be taught. The instructor held the dragon whip and stared at them like a tiger watching its prey. If they didn't do well, he would hit them. In short, the children suddenly returned to how they were when they first entered the school. They were so naughty and unbearable. Previously, they were very skilled in doing this. Now, they were purposely causing trouble. Since you don't want to do it, then run. Whoever sticks his head out will be locked in a small black room. The instructor sized up these people with a sharp gaze, as if he had a headache. What the hell? They were clearly about to succeed. Why did they revert to their old ways? What the hell? Useless scum. These parents were also in despair. Some of them had never done this before. Who knew how to build a house? Everyone lived in a house, but not everyone knew how to build a house. Firstly, they were directly asked to build the wall. They weren't afraid that the wall would collapse in the future. If this was a dream, why didn't they wake up? Moreover, some people gathered together to discuss and realized that everyone had become their own children. In the children's bodies, their thoughts were their own. The pain and despair they suffered were also their own. What was going on? Were they really seeing ghosts? They must be dreaming. Otherwise, such a bizarre thing wouldn't have happened. But it was too real. When the sun shone on their bodies, they felt unbearably hot and thirsty and sweaty. Some people went to the instructors to explain. They explained that they weren't their own children, but their parents. They wanted to leave this place. But in the end, they were determined to be lying. The teachers and instructors didn't believe them. Instead, they sneered and said that they were lying. They were really hopeless to think of such a way to escape. Since your parents sent you here, they have to be responsible for you. All the parents were speechless. You don't have to take responsibility anymore, okay? This kind of thing was really too unbelievable. If it didn't happen to them, they wouldn't believe it. Even if it happened to their child, they would think that the child must be lying. He did it on purpose. This was truly despairing. It was obviously true, but no one in the world believed him. You might even be treated as a lunatic. Take your medicine. Every time they caused a ruckus, they would be brutally suppressed. The price they had to pay was to be covered in scars. They were even locked in a small dark room where they had to take off their clothes. There were beds and toilets in the room, and they had to eat, drink, and defecate in the same room. Only one person would be locked up until he admitted his mistake. Gradually, in order to avoid being punished, the number of times these parents kicked up a fuss decreased. It was obvious that they had learned from their mistakes. Every time he was hit, it hurt so much that he couldn't sleep. Confinement in a small hut was more humiliating. They would take off their clothes for inspection. In short, there was nothing here. Some parents felt especially irritated when their addiction to smoking kicked in. They even asked the instructor for a cigarette to relieve their fatigue. You still want to smoke? Why don't you smoke at such a young age? If you don't learn well, you will be the dregs of society in the future. You will pollute the environment and take up space. If you smoke now, you might fight, kill, or rob in the future. As for the parents who wanted to smoke, they were locked in a small dark room. If they wanted to smoke, they had to go to the instructor. Wasn't that courting death? If they didn't punish you, who would be punished? The instructor would be so angry that he would laugh. They were looking down on him. No matter what these people did, they would be severely suppressed. Even if there were any troublemakers who wanted to cause trouble, the others were afraid of being punished. Gradually, they stopped going along with them. However, it was difficult to support a lone tree. There were fewer people who resisted. In the end, they would be obedient. After experiencing Wu Li for a day, everyone hoped that when they woke up, they would realize that it was a dream. Ning Shu stayed in the principal's body. Even if the sun was shining outside, Ning Shu could still faintly hear the sound of thunder. As a result, Ning Shu could only hide in this body. Originally, he wanted to go out and watch the commotion. In the end, he couldn't see anything. Using his mental strength was very tiring. This principal had nothing to do in the office. He didn't do anything else. He was either calling this leader or that leader. Ning Shu had nothing to do. He memorized everything the principal said. When the time was right, he would take over the principal's body to do something. As for these parents, they would probably have to stay here for a while. It was only a day or two. His impression wasn't very deep. Speaking of which, all the tragedies were because the children didn't have the ability to survive. Since they were dependent, they were bound to be disciplined by their parents. They were even objects. If the children could survive, had a source of income, and were already adults, such things wouldn't happen. Some of the habits of these parents, such as smoking, drinking, and playing cards, were things that shouldn't be a problem for adults. Once the children did these things, the sky would fall. Smoking, drinking, and playing cards would be trash when they grew up. They would be bad children. If these adults did these things, they would be bad old people when they got old. After experiencing so many things, Ning Shu deeply felt that only when he had the strength and the power to survive could he not be dominated by others. However, everyone had a huge relationship. We dominated others and were also dominated by others. Children should be at the bottom of this relationship. Almost everyone could dominate children because children couldn't survive. Ning Shu felt that it was really boring to stay here. Fortunately, he still had his mental strength to scan the school's situation. Otherwise, he would have wasted so much soul power but couldn't care about the situation of these parents. He felt very regretful. As for getting rid of these principals before he left, how could it be considered a grand and spectacular affair? Ning Shu felt that he was going to leave anyway. He didn't need to worry about the situation when the principal came back. He could do whatever he wanted. After dealing with the principal, this school would probably be leaderless. /BK. Chapter 25-34. Although such organizations were everywhere, it was better to have one less. Since you can change me into what you want, then I can also change you into what I want. You think I'm not your good child, then I don't think you're my good parent either. Everyone is changing each other. Will there be an organization to change parents one day? However, this was unlikely. After all, filial piety was the most important virtue. Disobeying parents was unfilial and would be severely criticized and attacked by public opinion. Ning Shu saw these people every day. Every night before they went to bed, they prayed that the God in their hearts could save them. When they fell asleep, it was a dream when they woke up. However, when they woke up every day, they still looked like they were about to collapse. Ning Shu almost laughed out loud. Every day they faced the same cycle. They couldn't even go out of school. The food wasn't good and they had to do many things every day. After leaving school for many years, they had to pick up books again. If they couldn't do the questions well, the teacher would say that their grades weren't good. If they didn't study hard, they were destined to be failures in the future. A series of personal attacks were launched. Fuck, even if my grades are bad, I've lived for so many years. Some of the parents muttered in their hearts. However, they didn't dare to say it out loud because they would be hit. That guy was hit and half of his arm was numb. It was extremely painful. Although they muttered in their hearts, they didn't dare to resist because they were adults. Adults and children knew how to seek benefits and avoid harm. When they knew that it was useless to say it out loud, they would shut their mouths. At least these people didn't dare to resist anymore. Ning Shu felt that these parents would become good parents when they went out. They would be perfect parents. They would be parents that children looked forward to, just like how parents looked forward to their children. The parents who were complaining about the food were hungry. They could only pinch their noses and eat. If they didn't eat, they would be hungry. The feeling of hunger wasn't good at all. Now that it was time to eat, they stopped complaining about the food. They didn't care if there were hormones in the food. They would talk about it after they were full. Other than food, there was nothing else. There were no snacks or fruits. They weren't allowed to eat snacks. They had to study, move bricks, and build walls. If they didn't eat, how would they have the energy to work? If they didn't do well, they would have to run or even be beaten up. In short, life was very difficult. Some girls would hide in their beds and cry at night, saying that they were not daughters at all and why such a thing had happened. Now, he hoped that his family would notice the abnormality and take them back. Every day he would look forward to it. When it was dark, he would lie in bed in disappointment, hoping that everything would be back to normal when he woke up the next day. If everything went back to normal, the first thing to do was to take the child and leave this place. He couldn't describe what he was feeling. Perhaps it was pain or regret. The pain in his body was constantly reminding him of what had happened. They had become children. What about their children? Had their children become like them and entered their bodies? Would the child come and take them away? Would the child be as expectant and fearful as they were now, waiting for them to come and take them away? Because he was truly in despair, so much so that his heart was filled with hatred. He hated it. Some of the parents were shocked. Was the child hating them for sending him to such a place? No matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how hard he tried. These people counted the days on their fingers, and each day felt like a year. Ning Shu was also counting the days because he wanted to see if the children who had become his parents would come and take him away at the first moment. On the 5th day, no children came. Perhaps they were a little confused. They didn't expect to wake up as their own mother and father and escape from the days of torture and humiliation. They were either celebrating or checking out the situation. In any case, they didn't come and take his body away at the first moment. Ning Shu, this is a little awkward. You thought you were good to the child, but they didn't accept you. Because of this, they even lost their weak blood relationship. Ning Shu counted the days, wondering when these children would come. These parents were at least obedient under this kind of high-pressure teaching. Even if they had something in their hearts, they wouldn't say it out loud. Silence was golden. Parents who didn't do well in their studies were now forced to study. It was painless, but if they didn't do well, they would be punished. Moreover, it was a punishment that hurt their self-esteem. Everyone here knew that they were adults and knew that the other party was the child's parent. Such an embarrassing thing made their old faces red. However, the teacher didn't give these people the respect of adults and treated them like children. They tried their best to do well and avoid being punished. They were very careful, afraid that they would be caught doing something and then face punishment. They would have to do high-intensity exercise, be locked in a small room, or even be attacked. Fear of violence, submission to violence. This was so like a dream. It was a nightmare, An awkward and terrifying nightmare. If these parents met in the future, how awkward would it be? The question now was whether this was a dream or reality. If it was reality, what should they do? Would they never be able to go back? Ning Shu noticed that the situation of the client's mother wasn't good. Because of her weak body, no matter what she did, she would be a burden. She was often punished and couldn't answer questions in class. Anyway, that body wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Anyway, he had to use this body's death to do something. Very soon. After that, parents came to the school one after another to pick up their children. Of course, the school didn't allow it. They tactfully told these parents that it wasn't time yet and that they could only leave the school when it was time. Moreover, they had said that the children would be handed over to the school. The school would definitely teach the children well before giving them to them. They had to hand over children who were obedient, sensible, and had excellent grades to their parents. These parents saw that the instructors and teachers who used to beat and scold them were now speaking to them politely. Was it because they were now the financiers and the ones who paid the money? Was that why they were so polite? Some of the more ambitious children wanted to see their own bodies and check out the situation at the same time. Of course, the children who wanted to see their parents were warned in advance not to say anything about the school. Even if they saw their parents, they were not allowed to do so. The parents and children met, but their identities were switched. Parent, you must study hard here and listen to the teachers. Child, brat, what are you talking about? Hurry up and take me out. /BK. Chapter 25-35. No one knew a son better than a father. Parents knew what their children were like, but the children also knew what their parents were like. Some hot-tempered parents wanted to rush up to the children who had taken over their bodies, but they were all stopped by the instructors. Fuck, what's wrong with these children? Shouldn't they be obedient when they see their parents, brats? Parent, please educate our children well. Child, Ning Shu, I'm dying of laughter. Some children came and some didn't. Perhaps they were afraid to come here, or perhaps they were very afraid because of the change of body, or perhaps there were other reasons. Only a few children came. However, Ning Shu felt that the children who came were gloating over her misfortune. In short, whether these children were gloating or indifferent, they never came to visit. In any case, the relationship between parents and children was almost broken. It was like the parents sent their children here, and the children allowed their parents to stay here. Both sides were hurt, and this rift would only grow bigger. Even when they met, it was a scene of silence. These parents muttered and scolded their children for being unfilial. They were indifferent to seeing their parents suffer here. The girls directly cried. Some people were going to stay here for a year and a half. Would they have to live like this every day? How could this be? Some of the soft-hearted mothers cried in pain at the thought of their children suffering such pain. They wanted to hug their children and wail. In short, they felt very painful. Everything here was very oppressive. They were trembling with fear and caution. Even the slightest thing could make one's heart jump. The first thing that came to mind was whether they would be punished. The physical pain and mental pain made one feel despair and suffocation. Ning Shu took over the principal's body and took control of it. Once she took over the body, Ning Shu immediately heard a loud rumble of thunder. It seemed to be able to shake her soul out of her body. Ning Shu, could she not stare at him all the time? When the time came, these souls would naturally be changed back. Now that she had taken over this body, she had something to do. Ning Shu took out a pen and unscrewed the cap of the fountain pen. At the same time, she was thinking about how to write a sincere and touching apology letter. At the same time, he also dragged out some of the big shots who were hiding behind the scenes. Ning Shu flicked his pen and began to write. He started by saying that he was guilty, and then he talked about the transactions he had made while running the school, as well as the various situations in the school, including the food problem. He wrote about every aspect of the school, including how they treated the students. In the end, he said that he had let down Leader XX, Leader XX, he had let down 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 Leader XX. He had let down Leader XX, 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 he had let down Leader XX. Ning Shu looked at the letter of apology she had written and felt that it was very simple and touching. She couldn't help but blow her nose that was dripping with snot because she was touched by it. Finally, he dipped it in the red mud and stamped it with his thumb. Then he put away the letter of apology. However, she felt that the handwriting didn't look like the principal's, so she repeatedly imitated the principal's handwriting. When she felt that it was about right, she copied the letter of apology again. Of course, good works had to be revised repeatedly. As a principal, he had to be very knowledgeable. He couldn't write too crudely. After revising it repeatedly, he scribbled a letter of apology in a slightly sloppy manner. Who could have written a letter of apology so neatly? After doing all this, Ning Shu waited for the client's body to die. After persisting for almost half a month, she had reached her body's limit. To be honest, to be able to persist until now was a little beyond Ning Shu's expectations. She thought that she could persist for 7 or 8 days. What could be more exciting than a person suddenly dying in front of her? Even if it wasn't her own child, she would still feel sad. One morning, when she was doing morning exercises, the instructor realized that someone didn't come. This kind of absence and lack of punctuality was the most intolerable. How could she be so lazy? The people in the same dormitory didn't know what was going on with her. When the instructor arrived at the dormitory and saw that this bitch was still sleeping under the blanket, he was furious. He lifted the blanket. "How long are you going to sleep for?" However, she didn't move at all. Her mouth was wide open and there were bloodstains around her mouth. Her eyes were wide open and she had a pained expression. Her chest wasn't rising and falling at all. She was obviously not breathing. The instructor's face turned pale and he panicked. He placed his hand on her neck artery and realized that it wasn't beating at all. He was so scared that his face turned even paler. Educating these children was one thing, but now that the child had died, it was another thing. What if someone died? The parents would come and make a scene. The instructor hurriedly went to look for the principal. When Principal Ning Shu heard this, he was very calm. "Don't worry, I have a way." The instructor immediately relaxed. He had heard that Lin Fan had a backer, but he didn't expect him to be able to deal with a death. My child, my child." Early in the morning, a parent came to the school gate to make a scene. It was obviously the client's mother. The client's body was dead and the client's mother naturally had to return to her own body. Moreover, the client's soul wasn't here at all. It didn't enter her mother's body either. At that moment, the client's mother was crying at the school gate. She collapsed on the ground and screamed at the top of her lungs, accusing the school of causing the death of her child. She deeply understood that kind of pain. Her body was clearly very uncomfortable and she wanted to seek medical treatment, but these people didn't agree. That night, she struggled in bed and vomited blood and died. She felt her body slowly becoming cold. In the dead of the night, this feeling was infinitely magnified. In addition to this woman, there were policemen and reporters beside her. The client's mother called the police and wanted to punish the culprit who hurt her daughter. Ning Shu used his mental strength to see her like this. She was already dead, so what was the use of doing this? Moreover, she gave up all of her soul power and directly went to the afterlife. She didn't plan to come back. It also said that the client had cut off the mother-daughter relationship between the two. The guards at the gate didn't let them in, but these were all policemen. They rushed in and found that there was no body in the dormitory. The policeman asked where the body was. Hiding the body? Another crime was added. It was early in the morning and the body didn't have time to be transported out. The school planned to take the body out and send it to the hospital. They would get a certificate from the hospital to prove that the person died in the hospital and not in the school. In the end, they couldn't withstand the police's questioning and told them that the body was in the storage room. There were some sports equipment in the storage room. The client's body was placed on the ground in a big bag and covered with a layer of cushion. /BK. Chapter 25:36. The reporters swarmed over to take photos, but they were all stopped by the police. Then, the body was carried away. When the mother of the client saw her daughter's body, she cried out loud. She thought that her daughter would return to her body after she returned to her body. She didn't expect her daughter to really die. Was everything she had experienced before real or just a dream? Her daughter was dead. The mother of the client pushed and beat up the teachers and instructors, asking them to compensate her daughter. The instructors and teachers didn't fight back and allowed her to hit their faces. Her nails scratched their faces. It was burning and painful. She wasn't feeling well. Why didn't you let her see a doctor? Why didn't you let her see a doctor? She already said that she wasn't feeling well. Compensate my daughter. This matter attracted a lot of attention. As the principal, Ning Shu didn't appear. Anyway, they could just continue to cause trouble. The autopsy results were out. Her neck was damaged and she couldn't get treatment. Hence, she dragged it on until she died. The mother of the client came to the school every day to cause trouble. The school couldn't operate normally anymore. Seeing a child die just like that, the parents felt a chill run down their spines. They knew all too well what had happened inside. Not long after this incident, the souls of these children and their parents were exchanged. These parents also came to the school to cause trouble, saying what happened to their children in the school. If they didn't experience it personally, they would be fine. In his heart, he was just glad that his child was fine. However, after experiencing all this and experiencing it personally, the anger in his heart had to be vented. In any case, the entire school was done for. Ning Shu took the confession letter and climbed to the top floor. She could hear the rumbling of thunder beside her ears. Ning Shu raised his finger. Didn't the souls already exchange back? Why was there still thunder? They probably wanted to destroy her. Since they could do such a heaven-defying thing once, they might do it a second time. It's the principal. Why did the principal climb to the top? Not good. Is the principal going to jump off the building? The teachers and instructors first thought that the principal couldn't withstand the pressure of the public and wanted to jump off the building. If he jumped off the building and died, everything would be over. But what about them? Was the principal going to abandon them? Didn't jumping off the building mean that the principal admitted to his crimes? They would be implicated. Some people hurriedly ran down the building to ask Ning Shu, the shortest principal in history, to calm down. Death wouldn't solve the problem. Some people called the police. The police had arrived. Regardless, there were also reporters who had caught wind of the news. The originally empty school became crowded again. There were students, parents, media reporters, police officers, and firefighters. When Ning Shu saw the crowd below, he smiled with satisfaction. If he jumped down in front of so many people, he wouldn't be able to hide it. I'm doing penance now. If there's anything, we can talk about it. You have to calm down. The police officer who counseled Ning Shu reached out his hand. Ning Shu walked over. Ning Shu immediately stretched out Kang's hand. Don't come over. If you come over again, I'll jump down. I really know how to jump. I'm not lying. Okay, I won't go over. Don't get agitated. The policeman immediately stopped. You have to think about your family. Ning Shu burst into tears. He covered his face and shouted, I'm a criminal. If I'm caught, I'll definitely go to jail. I'm a high-level intellectual. I can't be so shameful. The police officers were speechless. Suddenly, he did not know how to persuade him. What intellectual? He was just a beast dressed in human clothing. Everyone makes mistakes. You just have to correct them and admit your mistakes. Ning Shu immediately raised his head and asked, So I'm not guilty if I admit my mistakes? Police. If he said he was guilty, he would probably jump down after being provoked. If he was right, there were so many media reporters, parents, and students below. Ning Shu immediately said, I know. I'm guilty. As he spoke, he moved to the side. Ning Shu said to 2333 in his heart, "When I jump down, my soul will leave my body. Hurry up and teleport me away. Otherwise, the lightning will strike me." He had already lost so much soul power. If he was struck by lightning again, damn, his soul would be so weak that it could be blown away by the wind. 2333 replied with an "oh," to show that he understood. Ning Shu reminded him again, "Don't be distracted. I think once I leave my body, the lightning will strike me." He felt that the lightning above his head was already preparing for a big move. 2333, "Don't worry about me. Ning Shu, what if I'm more scared? I know that these things can't be hidden. Now that the school is in trouble, they don't care about me anymore. What a waste of the money I sent over." Ning Shu shouted as he was about to break down. "No, they don't care about you. Don't be agitated. Everything can be discussed." The police were very tired. Ning Shu sneered, "Do you know who I'm talking about? Police. I don't know." "If you don't know, then why would they care about me?" Ning Shu took out the letter of apology that he had written before and blew his nose again. He said awkwardly, "If I use this, will it reduce my sins? Take it and let us see." "I'm not going. You're trying to trick me. I won't fall for it." "Then I'll go take it." The police moved towards Ning Shu step by step and took the letter from Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu immediately said, "You go. See if you can reduce my sins." Ning Shu took a picture of the handwritten letter. After he died, an anonymous account would regularly post it on the internet. "Can I be pardoned?" Ning Shu asked the police. The police looked at the letters of apology with a heavy expression, and some of the letters mentioned names. It was a bit difficult to deal with. I know. Ning Shu's expression was very agitated. He was already at the edge and was about to fall. Ning Shu reminded 2333, "I'm going to jump. I'll count to 3. Start. 1, 2, 3. Ning Shujing jumped down the stairs, and screams could be heard. When he was about to touch the ground, Ning Shu's soul instantly left his body. He didn't want to feel such pain. With a bang, his body hit the floor. The loud sound was like a balloon exploding. Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the headmaster's broken body in broad daylight, almost turning it into charcoal. Ning Shu saw it and almost peed his pants. Fortunately, he ran quickly. The moment his soul left his body, the lightning wanted to kill him. But the principal's soul suffered. Fortune doesn't come in pairs. Misfortune doesn't come alone. He was dead. Now even his soul was weakened by the lightning. He might even be turned into ashes. Everyone was dumbfounded, and the screams in their throats were blocked. They never thought that they would be struck by lightning after jumping off a building. This was really unprecedented. /BK. Chapter 2537. After jumping off the building, he was struck by lightning in broad daylight. After being stunned for a short while, the reporters started taking photos like crazy. After all, this was quite a gimmick. Although science was advocated now, this kind of thing was only possible because the heavens had eyes. Being struck by lightning after death, it would definitely be a hot topic. Police. This guy is too impatient. He's such a straightforward person. He jumped down in such a hurry. Moreover, the names written on the letter of apology are all leaders. With his jump, some things became even more complicated. What was this called? This was called suicide. Not only did he die, but he also put a label on some people's heads. This matter couldn't be publicized, but it didn't seem right to not publicize it either. In short, his jump ended everything. However, some things became unverifiable. If he was still alive, he could change his words. But now that he was dead, what could he say? The police kept the letter. This kind of thing was better left to the higher-ups to handle. These people were not something a small police officer could handle. As for the letter, it would not be publicized. When these parents and students saw the principal's body turned into charcoal, they all felt very happy. They felt that all the pain and grievances they had suffered had been vented. He must have done too much evil and was struck by lightning after death. Let's see who the heavens will spare. The client's mother kept pounding her chest and crying. Even if the principal was dead, her daughter still couldn't come back. She was dead. In the past, she had expected better from her daughter. She hoped that her daughter would be better and become better. But she had never thought of letting her die. Why did her daughter die when everyone else was fine? The client's mother grabbed the instructor's collar and shouted hysterically, "You caused her death. You didn't let her see the doctor. You will get retribution. You will get retribution." The principal's death had a psychological impact on the instructors and teachers. They were speechless. Then, they heard the parents' complaints. They kept saying that they were not qualified to be teachers and wanted to lodge a complaint against them. The teachers and instructors were in a daze. Some of the instructors said that they were the ones who sent their children here. This was the teaching method here. If there was anyone to blame, they could only blame themselves. Why didn't they discipline their own children and send them here? When something happened, they blamed others. Anyway, this school was already disbanded. Since the principal was dead, they might have to compensate a large sum of money. After all, the child was dead. These parents were speechless. They felt that their children should be more strict, but they didn't expect it to be like this. If this continued, he might die from overwork at such a young age due to excessive exercise and fatigue. They weren't adults yet, but they had to do adult work, such as moving bricks and building walls. It was said to be training their hard-working spirit. However, no one knew whether this was to exploit the students' labor force or if they were really that selfless. This matter quickly spread on the internet and even became a joke. Cursing someone was like jumping off a building and being struck by lightning. Ning Shu's letter of apology was not made public. In fact, it was normal for it not to be made public. Ning Shu deeply repented in it. He felt sorry for the people who had trained him to support him. At the same time, he also wrote down the names of all these people on the paper. They were all people with interests, so this kind of thing definitely couldn't be known by the public. However, a few days after the incident, when the news was about to die down, the registered account published the invitation. There were always people who spread all kinds of propaganda, but these things were quickly deleted. Although they were deleted, many people had already taken screenshots. In short, this matter had already caused a storm on the internet. In any case, Ning Shu, as the principal, would be discussed for a period of time. A lot of things had been covered up. When the dust was lifted and the sun was seen again, it might not be revealed. It might also be buried again. As for the names that Ning Shu wrote on the letter of apology, even if he really couldn't do anything to them, there was still a stain on these people's records. Who knew when it would explode? However, it wasn't possible to climb up the ranks again. Because of this stain, if they were attacked or even stood on the wrong side, they would be cleaned up very quickly. That was a battlefield where people didn't see blood. Although it caused a commotion, there were still some parents who didn't think much of it. No matter what they did, there might be danger. If they could get into an accident while driving, then wouldn't they be on the road? If others choked to death while eating, then they wouldn't be able to eat? Some of them were special cases. Of course, this had nothing to do with Ning Shu. Even if he knew, he could only sneer. He was incompetent and had to rely on such an institution, believe in it, and worship it as a god. He was afraid that without such a school, he wouldn't be able to control his children. In fact, everything could be solved with a word, and that was money. When the children had independent financial ability, the parents would no longer be the masters of the children. However, this was basically impossible. 70 to 80% of the troubles in this world were caused by living conditions and resources. Just like how Ning Shu felt that he was poor and didn't have a world that could save him from being erased. These were all the troubles of survival. Ning Shu looked at his soul and sighed. Doing a mission was not enough to make ends meet. The souls that the entrusted person gave were definitely not enough to make up for the losses of this mission. The main thing was that there was no power in that world. He could have absorbed the power of the sun flame, but his body's condition wasn't good. He couldn't even absorb the power of the sun flame, let alone lightning. If he ran upstairs and roared at the sky, he would be struck by lightning and would immediately die. He had no choice but to use the power of the soul. He poured the source of the soul on the peerless martial arts. This time, there was a lot more source of the soul because 2333 sent a lot of soul fluid to the main system to purify. Soul fluid was the liquid formed by the entire soul, including the power of the soul and the source of the soul. Although it was gray in color, there was the source of the soul in it. Ning Shu touched the peerless martial arts and felt that there were fewer cracks on the peerless martial arts. He guessed that the quantitative change had reached a qualitative change. After pouring in so much source of the soul, there was no effect before. However, a change had a significant effect. Ning Shu looked at the peerless martial arts over and over again. He really felt that there were fewer cracks, but he suspected that it was his illusion. He asked 2333, I think there are fewer cracks in the world. 2333, if you think there are fewer cracks, then there are fewer cracks. Ning Shu, I'm seriously asking you. Ning Shu was too lazy to ask 2333. He began to sit cross-legged and absorb the power of the soul. This time, he absorbed the power of the soul fluid and the entrusted person's soul. This time, he didn't need to feed it to the world of reincarnation. Now that his soul was so weak, he felt so depressed. He absorbed all the power of the soul in one go. He guessed that there was a lot of power of the soul, so it took him a while to absorb. Chapter 25:38. Ning Shu opened his eyes and touched his body. He felt that his soul was much stronger. The wall was much tougher than before. Previously, it had felt like jelly, but now, it felt like hard muscles. It was the first time he absorbed so much soul power. It was really satisfying. Ning Shu stretched and checked the mission completion rate. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27. Rank, Super Mission Enforcer Scorecard, 31725 Soul, 282 Life, 242 Wisdom, 302 Luck, 322 Charm, 232 Mental Power, 314 Martial Power, 292 Aptitude, 294 Faith, 60614941500 Merit, 0 Soul Strength, 10410 Privilege, 1 Pure Heart, None Comprehended Law, Water Law, Wood Law Constructed World, Reincarnation World Tools, Calm Aura, Heart Setting Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2 Honorary Titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Fighting Technique, Intermediate Level Poison Technique, Beginner Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Level Code Programming, Beginner Level Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Level Cooking Skill, Intermediate Level Embroidery Skill, Trash Hypnosis Aura, Mother of the World, Model Worker Sister, Leader Aura, Best Friend for Life Healer of the Dying, Founding Female General, Beauty of the Law, Blood Clan's Nemesis, Cross-Race Communication, Heart of the Brave, Bloodthirsty Tyrant, Heart of Peace and Joy, Luck Aura. Complete the Mission Enforcer's Wish. Quest Completion Rate, 100%. Quest Rewards obtained, 25 point cards, 20 attribute points, 80% soul power, 15,000 faith power, 40% soul power, 40% soul power, 40% soul power, 40% soul source, Lucky Blessing Aura. The reward was not bad. He received an aura. Luck Aura. Was this really useful? Ning Shu felt that it had been quite bumpy. He hoped that it would be useful. She was really a pitiful little girl. This mission was barely worth it. It was probably a bit of a loss, but it wasn't by much. It was just a little more than 20 attribute points and 25 general points. It was just that he didn't have any more merit points. They were all used to buy star stones. It was good to have no money. What should he do without taxes? Did he really have to sell the soul fluid? It was easy to sell it, but it would be difficult to buy it back in the future. He might not even be able to buy it. Ning Shu stared at the points on the attribute panel. It seemed like these points were completely useless. He opened the system exchange store. These points could be used to exchange for some things. They were either not very good or very good. They required tens of millions of points. Ning Shu felt that these points cards were a bit like discount coupons. He didn't really care. Closing the stats panel, Ning Shu stroked the peerless martial art back and forth. There were definitely fewer cracks now. He wondered if the law of nothingness was still bubbling. Ning Shu entered the peerless martial art and saw a layer of white mist floating above the law of nothingness. It was still bubbling, but it would occasionally bubble. Ning Shu wanted to reach in and feel the temperature of the water. However, she quickly stopped this suicidal thought. What if the law of nothingness devoured her? She couldn't even find a place to cry. He really didn't know what to do with it. The star rock was extremely expensive. If he did it again, Ning Shu felt that he would be at the end of his rope. Because of this thing, he had spent so many resources and even destroyed the world. Originally, the peerless martial art should have a smooth life and become an ordinary world. But now it had become like this. Bitter. Such a big piece of star rock should be able to last for a while. He would go to the Nine Palace Mountain to see if there were any more of those purple stones. It would be even better if there were mines for these stones. With such a high temperature, even if there were mines, Ning Shu felt that there wouldn't be any plants around the mines. Seeing the law of nothingness bubbling and the cracks on the peerless martial art lessening, Ning Shu was still in a good mood. Was it because of the lucky aura? It was probably one of the reasons. However, if she didn't do anything and didn't repair the peerless martial art, how could there be fewer cracks? It was because she was cautious and conscientious. Ning Shu used the peerless martial art and opened the black hole to go to the world of reincarnation. 2333, you're leaving again. Aren't you going to do the mission? Didn't I just finish the mission? I need to rest, Ning Shu said confidently. 2333. He was going all out just to do a mission. The time he spent doing it was even longer than the time he spent on the mission. 2333 really wanted to explode. Do you know how many missions are piled up here? It's okay. Take your time. Ning Shu wasn't worried at all. Also, there's still soul fluid waiting for us to get. Don't tell me we don't want to get soul fluid because of the mission? Also, doing missions was tiring. He needed to rest. 2333 I've been successfully convinced. Ning Shu walked into the black hole and entered the dark world of reincarnation. He looked at the vast and boundless world. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry to split. He was afraid that if he kept splitting, he would fail and become a pile of space trash. He couldn't even pick up the trash. How sad. He walked past the Thunder Kirin and went to take a look at the rebirth pool. Ning Shu was worried about the rebirth pool. He was afraid that something would happen to the rebirth pool. After all, many worlds were depending on the rebirth pool to survive. Bonehead Li Si was still squatting beside the rebirth pool. He was so scared that some souls didn't even dare to jump into the rebirth pool. Ning Shu walked over and said, "There's no use for you to guard here. Even if he wants to come back here, he'll need a few decades." Li Si sighed. What if he dies halfway? Ning Shu, is it really okay to curse your master like that? Li Si, you've changed. I just want to guard here forever, Li Si said. How can others go to reincarnate if you guard here? Ning Shu couldn't help but say. If no one jumped in, how could there be any soul power? Oh, then I'll stay further away. Li Si stepped back. Then he sat down and stared at the rebirth pool. Then he said to Ning Shu, Great Aunt, do you think I should reincarnate with young master? Ning Shu, forget it. You'll probably be a skeleton in the future. His soul couldn't come out anymore. He didn't want to dirty the rebirth pool if he jumped in. Li Si was depressed. If he knew this would happen, he would have left this body. Now that he was a skeleton, did it mean that he couldn't reincarnate anymore? In the future, young master would reincarnate continuously. He would guard here and watch young master reincarnate again and again. It was too cruel. Chapter 2539. Li Si was tortured by the various miserable scenes he imagined. In the end, he covered his face in grief. Ning Shu really could not see any sadness on Bonehead's face. Hence, he could not empathize with his sadness at all. Stay away. You're too scary, Ning Shu said. They're still ghosts. Don't look down on each other. Ning Shu, what he said made sense. Ning Shu checked the rebirth pool. Seeing that there were no problems, he entered the second level. Ning Shu went to find the earthworm first and gave it some soul stones to eat. It must have starved to death after such a long time. Ning Shu went to the slums. He found that Yi Lin and the earthworm's house had collapsed. It was a mess on the ground. Where did the man and the earthworm go? Where did they go? Ning Shu hid in the city and looked around. He found that there were a lot more people in this city. There seemed to be many refugees. Could it be that the people from the previous two cities had all come to this city? Ning Shu. This was a little awkward. He had brought her out, but in the end she ran to another city. It was also possible that they had been robbed by another city. Where did the earthworm run to? Ning Shu wandered the streets. There were many guards in the city. They patrolled again and again. There were also some guards. There was a wanted poster on the wall. Ning Shu went closer to take a look. Looking left and right, it seemed to be her. As for the words, Ning Shu did not recognize them. It seemed that she was wanted again. It was normal to be wanted. When she destroyed the city, she did not hide her face. They were probably afraid that she would destroy another city. This time, the people in the city were very vigilant. They were afraid that she would destroy another city. Ning Shu looked at the person on the wanted poster. It was not nice at all. It was too rough. He could only tell that it was a woman. Where did that brat Yelin go? Ning Shu simply removed the barrier. Her ant-colored dress was especially eye-catching. The patrolling guards suddenly saw a red-clothed woman appear. She was exactly the same as the one on the wanted poster. She had watery makeup on between her eyebrows, was dressed in bright red, and was barefooted. When the guards saw Ning Shu, they didn't dare to use force. They could only send people back to inform stronger people to come over. He followed Ning Shu from afar. Ning Shu swaggered around the streets, occasionally looking at the peddlers' stalls to see if there was anything good. There were some rare heavenly treasures and earthly treasures, as well as rouge and face powder. Ning Shu walked to a corner. Yi Lin pulled her into a courtyard and closed the door. Are you crazy? Can't you see that you're wanted? Yi Lin said anxiously. Ning Shu sized up a deserted courtyard full of weeds. Is this where you live now? No one lives here, so I live here, Yi Lin said. Quick, give me soul stones to eat. I'm starving to death. The earthworm crawled out of the ground. Quick. Ning Shu, are you really hungry? Why do I feel like you've gained weight? The earthworm, I don't think so. How am I fat? Ning Shu rubbed her chin and sized up the earthworm. Yi Lin seemed to like the earthworm very much. He said to Ning Shu, it's very powerful. Ning Shu glanced at the earthworm indifferently and asked, how so? It can kill people with a single bite, and it seems to like soul fluid very much. Every time we attack a guard general, we steal his spirit. Style equals color, spirit, it's eaten all the soul fluid. Ning Shu chuckled at the earthworm, saying that it was hungry, but it had gained weight. Ning Shu said to Yi Lin, don't feed it so much in the future. It can't gain weight. It's not good for the body, and it's easy to get 3 types of high. Yi Lin, the earthworm. Wow, that despicable woman is going to deduct its rations again. If you have more soul fluid next time, keep it and give it to me, Ning Shu said. Yi Lin didn't suspect anything else. Besides, he didn't need soul fluid. Since she needed it, he would give it to her. He said, I still have some here. Yi Lin took out a spirit tool. It's full of soul fluid. The earthworm's bean-sized eyes stared at the spirit tool, full of despair. Once something fell into this woman's hands, it could forget about getting it back. Why was this guy so stupid? Ning Shu took the spirit tool and shook it twice. She felt that there was quite a lot of soul fluid inside. How many guards did you rob? Quite a few. We worked together with it. Yi Lin raised his chin at the earthworm. Ning Shu very naturally took the soul fluid and asked, how's your cultivation? I've already cultivated an aura form. Oh, what's an aura form? Ning Shu asked. Vines. Yi Lin lowered his head. Ning Shu didn't expect that Yi Lin's aura form would be vines. Let me see. Okay. Yi Lin released the vines. Many vines extended from the vines. Ning Shu frowned. Yi Lin immediately put away the vines and asked cautiously, Master, is there a problem with my aura form? Ning Shu said, Why imitate me? You can't control so many vines. Your body can clearly form an aura form most suitable for you. Because the vines are powerful. I heard that you destroyed 2 cities with your vines, Yi Lin said. Ning Shu, any power is very powerful when it reaches the extreme. You're doing this on purpose. You're dispersing your aura form to form an aura suitable for you, Ning Shu said calmly. Why? The youth's face showed a stubborn expression. Just because you're a vine, I can't form one? Aren't you a bit stupid? You can clearly create your own. Do you want to live in my shadow in the future? Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Dispersing your aura form the aura you want. Don't think about the vines anymore. Let nature take its course. You only see how powerful the vines are, but you don't know the power added to the vines. I've said what I should say. It's your choice. I won't interfere. Ning Shu felt that he had said everything to this cheap disciple. If he insisted on doing this, Ning Shu couldn't say anything. Yi Lin lowered his head and didn't say anything. Earthworm said, "You'd better not talk about him. This child is a bit bitter." "I'm bitter too," Ning Shu said. Earthworm, huh? Yi Lin lowered his head and didn't say anything. Ning Shu didn't say anything either. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. After a while, Yi Lin raised his head and looked at Ning Shu. He asked, "Do you really think that the vines I form aren't good?" "No, it's very restrictive on you. You can clearly create a new path that belongs to you. Why do you have to do this? Isn't it good to follow your heart?" Ning Shu asked in return. He wanted to sigh. Yi Lin said, "Oh," and didn't say anything. Ning Shu heard a lot of footsteps outside. It should be the guards outside who were chasing after them. Chapter 2540. The outside of the courtyard was surrounded by guards, and there were many experts floating in the air, staring at Ning Shu and Yi Lin in the courtyard. Suddenly facing so many people and being exposed, Yi Lin felt a little uneasy. He had always been secretly dealing with the guard generals. Even if the guard generals in the city died and disappeared, no one knew that it was him who did it. He liked this feeling. Now that he was exposed, how could he secretly do bad things in the future? Ning Shu swung his ponytail and asked with a grin, "What are you doing? So many people have come to welcome me." Yi Lin glanced at his master from the corner of his eyes. Even at this time, he could still smile and be so sloppy. Having strength was so awesome, so relaxed. Ning Shu waved his hand at these people. "Come down and talk. You guys float in the air. My neck is sore from looking up." Everyone, they weren't here to chat. In just a short while, the guard generals and guards had already surrounded the courtyard layer by layer. The atmosphere was very tense, ready to explode at any moment. Even so, these people still felt that it was not safe, even with so many people. Even thousands of soldiers and horses could not deal with a woman. "Why are you here?" The young man in the lead, Ning Shu, asked. Ning Shu put his hand on Yi Lin's shoulder. "Of course I'm here to see my disciple. This is my disciple. All these years, because of some things, I didn't take care of this disciple much. I allowed his family to be killed by the guard generals as a result," Ning Shu said indifferently. "Fortunately, my disciple was not killed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to find him," Ning Shu said indifferently. Everyone glanced at the swarthy beggar. They could not see what he looked like. With so many guard generals, who knew which one killed this boy's parents? Moreover, in this city, everyone was the property of the city. It was normal to kill them. The only thing that was not normal was that this boy's master was someone who destroyed cities and played around. They could not figure out her personality at all. "Of course we're willing to compensate this young friend. You can state any conditions you have, and we'll try our best to fulfill them," the man said. "It would be best if they could protect the city by paying a price. It would be best if they did not destroy the city like the other 2 cities, leaving only ruins behind. Building a city required a huge amount of manpower, resources, and time." Ning Shu and Yi Lin asked, "What kind of compensation do you want?" Yi Lin was a little flabbergasted. Normally, these people were high and mighty. They were the kings of the city and ruled over everyone. But now, they were showing weakness. He wanted to use compensation to eliminate the battle ears. Was this because he was strong? Yi Lin felt his blood boiling. His face was flushed and his eyes were bright. He also wanted to become such a terrifying existence. Yi Lin's lips trembled. He was speechless. Ning Shu said to these people, "It seems my disciple still hasn't let go of this matter. His family was killed. This kind of grief is not something he can walk out of in a short period of time." Everyone wanted to roll their eyes. Since it had been a few years, why couldn't he walk out of it? Moreover, in the city, he should know his own fate. These people's lives and souls belonged to the city. Their lives and deaths were in the hands of the ruler. Sooner or later, they would die. A spirit body with a strong soul sized up Yi Lin and said, "You must have killed quite a few guard generals and spirit bodies." Yi Lin immediately shook his head. I didn't kill anyone." "Don't deny it. I've heard that you have a pet that can turn souls into fools and scatter them." Yi Lin's actions were under the watchful eyes of some people. If not for Ning Shu's sudden appearance, Yi Lin would have been captured. Killing guard generals and using soul-seizing liquid was unforgivable. However, the city had more important things to do. This red-clothed woman who liked to destroy the city had done the important things first. Then she would slowly deal with these clowns. Who would have thought that this brat would suddenly become the red-clothed woman's disciple? Was there anything more ridiculous than this? This matter would probably have to be settled like this. When the time came for a fight, the city would be the one to suffer. This woman would use vines to destroy every inch of the city. She was so crazy that she wouldn't even let water in the well. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. "What? Now you want to slander my disciple for killing people and then take the initiative in the negotiations. Moreover, have you asked me if I really want to negotiate with you? Anyway, I'm not happy. Destroying the city is nothing." "Senior, you must be joking. Since he's your disciple, he definitely wouldn't do such a thing." "Bullshit. It was normal for people who destroyed cities and killed people. Like teacher, like disciple. Both of them were crazy. Crazy people who liked to kill people." "Ning Shu, then why are you looking for me?" "We're here to ask Senior what you're here for. If you have time, come to the city lord's residence for a meal." "Okay, then prepare well," Ning Shu said without any trace of politeness. "Then we await Senior's arrival." These people and guards retreated like the tide. "Master, are we really going to eat?" Yi Lin asked. Ning Shu nodded. "Of course, why wouldn't we go?" Ning Shu sized up Yi Lin. Now, not to mention those people who didn't know what Yi Lin looked like, she didn't know either. Yi Lin felt uneasy being sized up by Ning Shu. Ever since he knew that his master was so cruel, Yi Lin felt a sense of admiration for this cheap master of his. "Go take a bath and tidy up. We'll go to the banquet tonight," Ning Shu said. "Do we really have to go?" Yi Lin asked. He was very worried about the safety of the two people. "If we go directly, won't we be catching a turtle in a jar?" "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Go take a bath." "Forget it, let's go to the bathhouse." Ning Shu opened the courtyard door. Yi Lin helplessly followed behind Ning Shu. Ning Shu bought some clothes and paid with soul fluid. Soon, soul fluid would disappear from history. Yi Lin and Earthworm entered the bathhouse. Ning Shu waited at the door. Not far away, there were people watching them. They were probably sent by those people. However, they didn't dare to get close. They only dared to watch from afar. Ning Shu ignored these people and did what he needed to do. Yi Lin's body was probably too dirty. After washing for a long time, he still didn't come out. When he came out, he was already a thin youth with a yellow complexion. His eyes were pitch black and his body was firm. As for the scene that Ning Shu imagined after washing clean and looking like carved jade, it didn't happen. Originally, he thought that since he was favored by the heavens, he should be handsome. However, his face was yellow and thin. However, his facial features were quite good. /BK. Chapter 2541. That was true. Begging for a living was not a normal life. He should be a good-looking young man after he was nursed back to health. It was reasonable to say that cultivating would make the body in the best condition. He had already cultivated the chi form, but he was still so thin and weak. Yi Lin took a comfortable bath. Seeing his master staring at him like that, and a woman at that, he was already a young man. He naturally knew the difference between a man and a woman. Ning Shu forcibly made Yi Lin's face turn red. Ning Shu shook his head and said, "You don't look good." Yi Lin? Clang. What was it that broke? Ning Shu chose royal blue clothes. He thought he would be a handsome young man, but he looked like he had just recovered from a serious illness. Earthworm had taken a hot bath and was lying comfortably on Yi Lin's shoulder. He felt the young man's body suddenly stiffen. "I think you look good. You were so dirty before, but now you're so clean," Earthworm said. Unfortunately, Ye Lin couldn't hear the earthworm's words. Ning Shu brought Ye Lin to choose a new set of clothes. This kind of sapphire blue clothes could only be worn when he could hold it down. Back in the deserted courtyard, Ning Shu sat on a stone bench and condensed a mirror with water in front of him. "You haven't seen yourself before, right? You're yellow and skinny. Have you ever seen an expert look like a refugee?" Yi Lin looked at himself in the mirror. He wondered how the water-like mirror was formed. His master was more powerful than he had imagined. He always felt that she was a little mysterious. "Do you see it? Do I look good?" "Very good." Ning Shu. "Do you know why?" Yi Lin shook his head. "Release the vines and wrap them around the house," Ning Shu said. "Okay." Yi Lin released the vines. At first, it was fine, but as more and more vines appeared and stretched further and further, his expression became a little painful. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. These chi force vines didn't listen to his commands at all. They either didn't move or they were in a mess. This was because Yi Lin's control was not good enough. "All right, put it away," Ning Shu said. Yi Lin also seemed to know that he had done something wrong. He lowered his head and did not say anything. "Do you know what the reason is? You can't control them now. Your spiritual power isn't strong enough to control these vines. You need to control every single one of them. You're overdrawing your spiritual power. When your spiritual power can't hold on any longer, you'll begin to overdraw your soul. Now you look yellow and emaciated, but after a while, you'll become an old man." Cultivation could allow a person to maintain their best condition and even maintain their body at a certain age and state. However, it was rare to see a situation like Ye Lin's. "Then, Master, do I really have to disperse the chi form again?" Yi Lin asked, somewhat unwilling to give up. "Why are you so insistent on this thing?" Ning Shu was somewhat amused. "They are of the same origin." Ning Shu was speechless. "Let me tell you, when I had a body, the chi form I cultivated was a dragon, not a vine. Everyone's chi form is different. Who told you that it has to be a vine?" Yi Lin was speechless. He suddenly felt so desperate that he wanted to hit someone. "Disperse the chi form. Come here, I'll disperse it for you." Seeing that this guy had given him some soul fluid, it was just a matter of convenience. Yi Lin approached Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "It hurts a little." Before Yi Lin could react, he felt as if his dantian had been smashed by something. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and the meridians all over his body bulged. A drop of water in Yi Lin's dantian set off stormy waves, forming a water dragon. The vines retreated step by step and finally dissipated. Although it didn't last long, Yi Lin was already covered in blood. Blood was seeping out of all the pores on his body. Yi Lin felt that his body was twitching in pain. It was so painful. A drop of emerald green liquid merged into Yi Lin's body and repaired Yi Lin's damaged body. It was a very comfortable and cool feeling. Soon Yi Lin recovered. Ning Shu set up a spirit gathering array around him to absorb the surrounding spirit chi. "Condense it again," Ning Shu said. Yi Lin sat cross-legged and absorbed the spirit chi. It was almost too late for this transformation. Yi Lin's expression was a little painful. Ning Shu said, "The chi form is not for you to choose. It will be generated automatically." It was not certain whether he wanted to form a particularly awesome and flashy one. Yi Lin opened his eyes and sighed. He looked a little desperate. Judging from his expression, He was probably not satisfied with the qi form. However, Ning Shu still wanted to rub salt on his wound. What did you form? Yi Lin's lips moved, but he didn't speak. Ning Shu directly produced vines to hurt Yi Lin. Moo! A sound that sounded like a cow's moo was heard. A strong cow with 2 sharp horns, Ning Shu, rushed over. It turned out to be a cow. A cow was not bad. Yi Lin withdrew his qi form and didn't want to speak. Ning Shu pointed to the wall. It should be a strength type. Try to hit the wall. When it is strong in the future, it should be very powerful to hit mountains, dig mountains, and trample people with its hooves. Yi Lin's expression became a little better. He let the cow hit the wall. The qi cow's horns crashed into the courtyard wall, causing it to collapse. In the future, the qi form will become bigger and bigger. There will be a lot of room for growth, Ning Shu said. It could also become a mount, like a giant dragon. However, it wasn't as flashy as a qilin, phoenix, or giant dragon. Yi Lin wasn't very happy. Even if it formed a chicken, it would become stronger. All right, we should go to the banquet. Ning Shu stood up and stretched. When the second level was resolved, he wanted to go to the third level to take a look. He wondered what the third level was like. Yi Lin followed beside Ning Shu. He couldn't help but ask, why do we have to go? Isn't it better to just destroy the city? Sometimes, fighting is really tiring. It also used up the power of the law of wood. But sometimes, only fighting can solve problems, Yi Lin said. Do you know how to be polite before resorting to force? If we start fighting, it won't be cool, Ning Shu said. As the two of them spoke, a group of guards came over. Ning Shu cupped his hands and said that they were here to welcome them. The palace between the cities was very big and very luxurious. It was even more luxurious than ancient imperial palaces. Yes, there must be a lot of soul fluid inside. It was Yi Lin's first time coming to such a luxurious place. He was especially shocked, but he tried his best to pretend to be calm. He secretly sized up Ning Shu. Suddenly, he wondered what kind of person his master was. Even in the face of such riches, his expression was indifferent. His background was really mysterious. It was likely that everyone in the second level of 9 Palace Mountain who knew of Ning Shu's existence was digging up Ning Shu's background. However, Ning Shu was a person without a background. He was a person who appeared out of thin air. /BK. Chapter 2542. A large group of people greeted Ning Shu at the entrance of the palace. There were many people, and their auras were all very powerful. This was a warning to intimidate her. Yi Lin was obviously intimidated by this aura, but he quickly came back to his senses and kept silent with a cold expression. When faced with an embarrassing situation, one only needed to keep a cold expression and not speak. Senior, please take a seat. These people were very polite as they let Ning Shu enter the palace. Ning Shu grunted and sat down. Yi Lin sat beside Ning Shu, and the others also sat according to their status. As soon as they sat down, the sound of stringed and woodwind instruments rang out, and beautiful dancers entered the palace and started dancing. Ning Shu just looked at them with a cold expression. As for the things in front of him, Ning Shu would not eat them, as they would pollute his soul. The jug was filled with soul fluid. It seemed to be quite pure, but to Ning Shu, it was still impure. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the dancers dancing enchantingly. These beauties were really beautiful. If they were in the modern world, they would all be big stars. Seeing that Ning Shu was not eating or drinking the soul fluid, a person stood up with a wine cup and said to Ning Shu, "Senior, this is the purest soul fluid in our city. Please try it." Then, as if to prove that there was no problem with the soul fluid, he drank it in one gulp. Ning Shu looked at the person who drank the soul fluid in shock. "You have a body, but you still drink soul fluid?" When everyone heard her ask such a superficial question, they wondered if this person had come out of the mountains or forests. However, they still answered seriously. What if this person went berserk again? From the information they had received, this woman was really very willful. Soul fluid can be used by both spirit bodies and cultivators, someone explained. Does absorbing soul fluid help a cultivator's cultivation? Ning Shu had a frightened expression on her face. Wasn't this just messing around? She knew how to play. There were no cultivators on the first level who could absorb soul fluid with soul stones, but the people of this world drank soul fluid as a drink? Everyone, what a country bumpkin. If they were not afraid that this person would destroy the city, who would want to accompany a country bumpkin here to talk about common knowledge that everyone knew? They were all people with status in the city. It's quite helpful. After absorbing soul fluid, one's soul will become stronger, and the speed of cultivation will be faster, someone explained. Ning Shu asked again, are there any side effects, such as qi deviation? This will only happen if you absorb impure soul fluid. Don't worry, the soul fluid in the banquet is pure. Ning Shu, are you sure? It seemed that these people treated the soul fluid as a powerful method, just like absorbing spirit stones. To them, this was pure soul fluid, but Ning Shu felt that it wasn't pure at all. That meant that not only soul fluid, those with physical bodies also used soul fluid. No wonder everyone had to be enclosed in the city. Who was the one who had invented this method? What a genius. At that time, it might have been a way to deal with these wandering souls, but times had changed, and now the heavenly Tao was going to overthrow this model. When this model was overturned, people would become much more free. Of course, freedom came with a price, and that was to face the dangerous world alone. But souls were free, and they could enter the world of reincarnation and start a new life. Ning Shu picked up the wine cup and shook the soul fluid in the cup. Although it was clearer, it was still not pure soul fluid. Yi Lin saw that Ning Shu did not drink, and also did not drink with a cold face, and felt a little disgusted. These things poured into the wine cup were human souls. It was to crush human souls and turn them into cups of soul fluid that could make people stronger. Humans were like cows, squeezing out fresh milk, and these people were eating blood-stained buns. Ning Shu put down the wine cup. I won't drink this kind of thing directly. If you really want to give me soul fluid, then give me all of it. I also said my conditions. If you want me to let go of this city, it's not impossible. Give me all of the soul fluid, and destroy the device that can purify soul fluid. Like this city, if one was overthrown, maybe another one would appear. Everyone, you really think you're a spring onion. Don't think that you're invincible after destroying 2 cities. That's because you didn't hit an iron plate. If you hit an iron plate, you'll definitely break your leg. The atmosphere froze for a moment. The music stopped, and the dancers retreated. One of the souls played with the wine cup in his hand. You're going too far with what you said. What are you doing this for? Of course, it's to build a harmonious society. Ning Shu said without a care. You're crazy. If you're sick, take medicine. How did this kind of person cultivate? Was the heavens blind? Crazy people were not scary, but crazy people with fighting strength were scary. Yi Lin almost choked on his saliva. He did not understand what she was thinking. What was she doing? He could not make sense of what she was doing. What if we don't agree? What do you plan to do? Are you sure you can destroy the city? I advise you, this is not a small city. One of them warned with a cold face. Moreover, the city's trump card was something she could not imagine. She would definitely be finished. The atmosphere became more and more tense. A battle was about to break out. Ning Shu dropped the wine cup on the ground. With a clang, the wine cup shattered. Ning Shu said apologetically, "Sorry, my hand slipped." Don't go too far. Do you think you can leave after coming here? Looks like you have a lot of good things on you. Ning Shu sighed. Why did everyone think she had good things on her? They were all thinking about the good things she had. She now had 2 law imprints, which were very precious. She also had a ruby ring. The problem was, could they get it? Yi Lin was a little nervous. Seeing his cheap master so calm, he also calmed down. However, he was really worried that his cheap master would leave him here. Yi Lin was measuring his own fighting strength. He did not know how much fighting strength that bull had. Sure enough, it's the Hongmen banquet. There's no other way. Looks like I have to fight. Ning Shu put away the wine jug on the table. It was full of soul fluid. He could not waste it. Yi Lin also silently put away the wine jug. He did not understand this person. He clearly liked soul fluid very much, but she did not allow others to produce it. But he did not understand her goal. Could it be that she wanted to overthrow the rule of these cities and establish an even larger place to produce soul fluid? If that was really the case, then would he have to part ways with his master? He could not accept that one day he would become his master's helper and help her collect souls. His parents had died because of this, becoming a cup of soul fluid. /BK. Chapter 2543. Yi Lin's mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts, and the current situation had become very restless. The horses were about to fight. One side wanted to give something to Ning Shu like he was a beggar, while Ning Shu wanted to completely destroy the existence of the city. This contradiction could not be reconciled, and could only be solved by fighting. Yi Lin's heart was somewhat eager to give it a try. Although he was not satisfied with the newly formed soul fluid, he wanted to test his combat strength. Fighting with so many experts, his blood was boiling. Ning Shu sighed. It seemed that he was going to fight, and he did not want to waste the power of the imprint. What do you want? Ning Shu, the expert in the hall, asked. Ning Shu shook his head and said, My request is like this. If you don't agree, then we can only fight. If you agree, you might be able to keep your life. If you fight, people will die. Souls are not something you can imprison, Ning Shu said. So, you want to occupy all the souls, all the people. Ning Shu stretched out his finger and waved it. No, it should be said that all the souls will come to me, and you will imprison the souls so that they can't go where they should go. Yi Lin looked at his master with some astonishment. So, his master had the same goal as these people, for souls? Yi Lin clenched his fist tightly, and the blue veins on the back of his hand bulged. What should he do? He clearly felt that this situation was wrong. People should not be like this, like cattle and sheep, and then like animals waiting to be slaughtered. But his master was also like this. Should he do the same? The kindness of teaching collided with his own heart. The others sneered. They obviously had the same idea, but they came to rob so openly. Couldn't they be a little more shameless? If they did not destroy this kind of person today, would there be people coming to rob them in the future? The hall was surrounded by a barrier, which should have been set up before. I'll give you something it should be easy to accept. Do you really think that you are invincible after destroying 2 small cities? Ning Shu tapped the table with his finger and said to Yi Lin, Fight with these people and see how strong you are. Yi Lin's expression was hesitant and somewhat resistant. He wanted to help his master deal with these people, but what was the difference between his master and these people? Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at Yi Lin. Why was he standing still? Don't you want to take revenge? Yi Lin hesitated for a moment. He would settle this matter first, and then talk about his master. Ye Lin released the bowl, which was condensed from spirit chi, and charged towards the crowd with its horns on its head. That aggressive look was indeed quite frightening. Ning Shu smiled at Yi Lin and said, Cowherd boy. Yi Lin was speechless. Why didn't he have a mighty and domineering aura? One look and he would be able to act cool. It was so hopeless. The bull rampaged in the hall, and its nostrils seemed to be able to spurt fire. Ning Shu felt like he was watching a bullfight. If someone was careless, his waist or body would be hit by the bull, and his face would turn pale. But weapons couldn't do anything to this bull. Even if it was broken, it could be condensed again as long as there was enough spiritual energy. This kind of indestructible creature, which didn't know pain or fatigue, was the most torturous. The hall was in chaos. Someone covered the bull with a magic weapon to prevent it from running around. Yi Lin condensed another bull. Ning Shu said to Yi Lin, If you want, you can condense a large herd of bulls and flatten a place. Don't think that only vines are powerful. Yi Lin's expression changed, and he didn't resist the chi bull so much. Yi Lin's strength wasn't enough. It was just a small fight. In the end, Ning Shu had to do it. Moreover, Yi Lin's body didn't have much spiritual energy. Ning Shu stretched out his vines and wanted to entangle these people together. Yi Lin looked at these vines. They seemed to have their own consciousness. It was like they were growing. They looked messy, but they weren't messy at all. If he had to control so many vines, his head would probably explode. When everyone saw this woman release the vines, they were very careful. They heard that these vines destroyed a city. How did this kind of vine grow? He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the chaotic scene. With these vines, these people couldn't get close at all. Ning Shu felt that laws were really good things. He had to comprehend more laws in the future. Who knew when he wouldn't be able to comprehend them? There was a problem with his sea of laws. Who knew when it would be completely exhausted? However, these people's strength couldn't be underestimated. They directly cut the vines into pieces. Their every move had a huge pressure. Adding that there was a barrier here, it seemed to be able to weaken their strength. Some people sneered. Let's see how many vines you have. These vines were really good things. Yi Lin saw that the vines were at a disadvantage and released his bowl. Although it wasn't of much use, it could at least delay 1 or 2 people. Yi Lin was anxious to death. He turned his head and saw that his master was actually picking up the wine jug on the ground. He shook it twice. If there was soul fluid, he would keep it. If there wasn't, he would throw it away. He was really picking up scraps. He was too greedy. They were fighting now. Who cared about soul fluid? He was really convinced. Master, we are going to be captured alive. Yi Lin said with a bit of disappointment. Don't worry, your master, have a way. We are not at the end of the line yet. Don't be afraid, I will protect you. These people are really stingy. They actually drank all the soul fluid. Yi Lin, please, can I beg you? Ning Shu took out the ruby ring and shot out a ray of time light. The barrier immediately weakened a lot. He shot out another ray, and the barrier cracked and disappeared. What's going on? Everyone was a bit stunned. The barrier was actually broken just like that. Some sharp-eyed people saw the ring on Ning Shu's hand. What kind of spirit tool was that? It actually broke the barrier in 2 or 3 moves. There were many good things in the formation eye of the barrier. Ordinary people couldn't get out at all. In the face of such a treasure, no one wouldn't be greedy. If they had such a treasure, they could go anywhere. The barrier was nothing. It was like a fish in water. If they wanted to steal something or do something bad, this spirit tool would be a great weapon. They really wanted it. Yi Lin glanced at the ruby ring on Ning Shu's finger. The ruby was dazzling and red, without any impurities. It was as red as blood. His master was really mysterious. He also had many treasures on him. What was his background? What did he do? What was his purpose? If he asked, would his master tell him? Yi Lin was very depressed. If his master was like these people and also wanted to enslave souls, what should he do? Yi Lin was so conflicted that he wanted to cry. /BK Chapter 2544. As Ning Shu took out the ruby ring, the Azura arena paused. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu looked at her hand and said, "Don't drool over my beautiful hand." Yi Lin could not help but want to roll her eyes. Who here was looking at her pig-trotters? They were all looking at the ring. She guessed that all of them wanted to snatch the ring. Don't take everything out. This way of showing off your wealth was the most hated. Ning Shu unhurriedly took off the ring and put it away. Everyone's expression became disappointed and frustrated. Their expressions were as if they had lost their lover. Ning Shu said, "If you don't agree, then I can only destroy this city. Since you don't want to take out the soul fluid, I will find it myself." Impudent? Hee. Because of the stimulation of the ring, these people became very active. They all wanted to get rid of Ning Shu and snatch the ring on her. This kind of thing that could break barriers was good stuff. As long as there was a barrier, it could be passed unimpeded. More vines stretched out from Ning Shu's body, preventing these people from approaching. The vines wrapped around these people, and white flowers bloomed on the vines. It emitted a fragrant scent. Ning Shu was a little surprised. The vines actually grew flowers. Well, flowers would definitely look better than bare vines. There were some green leaves and flowers. It was very good. The people who smelled the fragrance of the flowers showed an intoxicated expression. They seemed to feel the aura of life. There was a burst of life force surging in their bodies. But not long after, this life force began to slowly disappear from their bodies. Everyone woke up as if from a dream and found that their strength had decreased a lot. Ning Shu felt a burst of life force rushing into her body. It accumulated on the law of wood imprint in her mouth. The drop of crystal clear water seemed to have become bigger. Although she did not know what was going on, it was good to be able to increase her strength. Vines stretched out from the hall and rushed in all directions of the city. The demons are here. The demoness who destroyed the city is here. The commoners in the city lost their heads out of fear. They covered their heads and scurried away like rats, spreading the news to each other. It was a complete mess as they all rushed out of the city. These vines wrapped around one house after another. The vines pierced deeply into the towering city walls, causing cracks to appear on the city walls. Everyone watched as the vines quickly covered the entire city. At a glance, everything was green and lush. They were all vines. Ning Shu spread his hands and said, "If you don't agree, then we can only fight, and you want to rob my things. Hee, what are you feeling wronged for? Didn't you come here to snatch the soul fluid? Not only did you snatch the soul fluid, you even went so far as to destroy the city." Everyone's expression was extremely ugly as they looked at Ning Shu and Yi Lin, who were floating in the air. Yi Lin probably hadn't learned how to fly yet, as he stood in the air in a panic. "Why don't you release the cows and sit on their backs? It would be more appropriate to sit on their backs. It wouldn't be so embarrassing." Yi Lin was speechless. "I refuse. If I sit on their backs, I will really become a cowherd." Yi Lin looked at the vines that covered the entire city and sighed in his heart. Previously, he felt that it was very terrifying just by hearing about it. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, it was even more spectacular. With just a thought, these vines could destroy the entire city. Ning Shu asked, "Are you going to give me the soul fluid?" "No, don't go overboard. When the time comes, everyone in the world will attack you. You won't be able to fight against so many people with your 2 fists, a person warned Ning Shu with a dark face. They didn't expect this guy to release the vines just like that. This city would definitely be destroyed. There was no turning back once the arrow was shot. If this person was a prideful person, what if he wanted to destroy the city? Ning Shu said, "I have more than one pair of hands. I have many hands. And if I want to hide, none of you will be able to find me." Ning Shu wasn't afraid at all. He opened a black hole and ran away. He would disappear from this world. Where would they go to find him? Even if they turned this world upside down, they wouldn't be able to find him. Everyone was speechless. They were most afraid of this kind of rat-like thing. She was just a troublemaker. She was alone in this world and was not afraid of anything. She threw a stone at a rat and even hit an exquisite porcelain. They had a lot to worry about. And the other party didn't care about anything. "Will you leave just because I gave you the soul fluid? Won't you come back in the future?" Ning Shu waved his hand. "Other than giving me the soul fluid, you also destroyed the equipment to purify the soul fluid and the spirit tool in General Wei's hand to collect souls. There was no room for negotiation. This guy wanted to cut off everyone's livelihood. Without these things, where would the soul fluid come from? He was deliberately looking for trouble. He didn't want to settle this peacefully at all. Without these things, how would they collect souls and produce soul fluid? He was obviously greedy for the soul fluid, but he wanted to destroy all these equipment. Could it be that he wanted to monopolize everyone and make it impossible for others to produce soul fluid? Then there's no room for negotiation. You've gone too far. If you leave now, we'll compensate you. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Ning Shu said, "Then let me see the consequences." Ning Shu snapped his fingers. The vines covering the city wriggled, destroying the houses and city walls. Rumble, rumble, the ground shook. The walls fell to the ground, raising a thick layer of dust. Damn it, damn it. Some people were so angry that their eyes were red. How could he bully people like this? A warrior would rather be killed than humiliated. The vines drilled into the thick city walls, destroying the towering city walls. The power of laws here wasn't suppressed at all. Ning Shu suspected that he had opened a back door for himself. Logically speaking, every world would have a suppression on power. It wouldn't allow power to exceed the limits of the world. But no matter the reason, it was fine as long as it was beneficial to her. With a rumble, one of the city walls fell down. Fuck, what the hell is this? Lowly slave dared to come here and cause trouble. A bad-tempered cultivator cursed and rushed over. Ning Shu's face was as calm as water. He stared at the cultivator who rushed over. With a tap of his finger, the cultivator's blood began to boil. The cultivator immediately stopped and used his cultivation to suppress the abnormality in his body. Because the cultivator's blood was boiling, his body was flushed red like a cooked shrimp. He felt like his entire body was about to smoke. The cultivator circulated the spirit energy in his body to expel the heat. Seeing this, the others hurriedly asked, "Are you all right? What did you do to him?" Ning Shu shrugged and said, "I didn't do anything. He was the one who rushed over." The cultivator's situation wasn't good. His skin was getting redder and redder. Chapter 25:45. Not only was his skin flushed red, but it also began to swell. It was steaming hot, just like the braised meat that had just come out of the pot. But then, the blood in his body began to freeze again. His face turned from red to pale white, and his whole body was emitting cold air. The cultivator's body couldn't take the cold and hot. Although he didn't directly explode, his whole body didn't feel good. Everyone looked at Ning Shu in horror, not knowing what she had done. The vines were still destroying the city, and the houses collapsed one by one. The towering city walls were full of cracks, and it was as if the city would collapse with just a finger. Yi Lin felt really fucking good. The feeling of collapsing one by one was really good. Destruction was much easier than construction. Because of the previous example, these people didn't dare to rush up rashly. They stood in a stalemate. The leader gritted his teeth and looked a little hesitant, but he still crushed the jade in his heart. Ning Shu saw it, but she didn't stop it. The leader should be informing someone. But Ning Shu increased the speed of destroying the city, and the ground was rumbling. The people outside the city watched as their homes turned into ruins, and dust flew everywhere. What was this woman doing? Wherever she went, she destroyed. Was there no one who could deal with her? The heavens were blind. Some women hugged their children and cried. Their homes were gone, so where could they go? Some people trembled. Some of them had already experienced this and thought that it would be fine after changing to another city. They didn't expect to experience it again. She destroyed one city after another. There were also some older people who directly knelt on the ground and begged the heavens to punish such a vicious person. It would be best if she could be struck to death. One person knelt down, followed by many others who knelt down and started praying. "See, the one who wins the hearts of the people controls the world. Demons like you should be punished." The leader saw that all the people in the city knelt down and begged the heavens. Ning Shu said nonchalantly, "I destroyed 2 cities before. Everyone did the same, but I'm still alive and well. I don't see the heavens punishing me. As for what these people think of me, it's none of my business. Whether they like me or hate me or fear me, I don't care," Ning Shu said directly. If he had to make everyone understand him, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? If he had the time, he might as well use it to search for soul fluid and destroy 2 more cities. The opinions of these people did not affect her at all. It was like a gust of wind blowing past her ears. She did not need to care about them. Yi Lin was speechless. This kind of pain in the ass that didn't even care if he was hated by millions of people, she had to kneel down in admiration. 666. Even though there were so many people praying, the sky was still blue and white. There was no divine lightning, and the city was completely destroyed. Everything was in ruins. The people were speechless. The heavens were blind. "Why hasn't the person you notified arrived yet?" Ning Shu asked. "If he hasn't arrived, then I'll take the soul fluid." Ning Shu took out the ruby ring, put it on his finger, and aimed it at the barrier above the palace. Under the light of the time ray, the palace's barrier had already shattered. Ning Shu was about to enter the palace to find the pool of soul fluid. Stop, don't be too arrogant. Seeing Ning Shu's swagger, he was so angry that his eyes were about to turn red. He was a high and mighty person in the city. Now that he was being humiliated like this, he could not stand it. Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at them. My city has already been destroyed. What does it matter if I take the soul fluid? Fellow Taoist, you're going a little overboard. A man's lazy voice came from the horizon, and then a black dot appeared. The black dot grew bigger and bigger, and a man in white clothes was standing on the back of a vermilion bird. He looked at Ning Shu with a smile on his face. City Lord, you've returned. When everyone saw this man, their eyes immediately burst with strong confidence. Obviously, they had absolute confidence in this man. Ning Shu looked at him and greeted him with great grace. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Well said. Why did you destroy my city like this? The man in white was not angry at all. Instead, he asked Ning Shu curiously. Ning Shu sighed and said helplessly, because I need souls. I want souls to go where they should go. So, these cities have souls and even refine them. How can I tolerate this? Oh, so you're saying that we're in the wrong? The man was even more curious. Fellow Taoist, is there a problem with your logic? Everyone, are you guys really that naive? Ning Shu shook his head and said, there's no problem with logic. Everyone is fighting for souls. I'm also here to fight for souls. Is there a problem with logic? Cities were all thinking about annexing each other and taking the other's population into their own to increase their population. It was as if there was a problem with logic between countries. The man nodded seriously. You're right, City Lord. Was it really okay to say that? But if you invade my territory and hurt my people, you have to pay the price. If we're not strong enough today, you can destroy us. But what if you can't leave today? The man was very gentlemanly from beginning to end. He was not angry. Ning Shu said with a smile, don't worry. I'll definitely escape. You can rest assured about this. Well, you might be able to escape, but the little friend beside you might not be able to. The man was talking about Yi Lin. Yi Lin, who was being watched, tried his best not to tremble. He was the weakest person here. If not for his master, anyone here could kill him instantly. You don't have to worry about that. Taking him away is a matter of minutes. And if he really can't escape, you can rest assured that I'll definitely kill him. I won't let you torture him, Ning Shu said jokingly. Yi Lin, he was speechless. He couldn't tell which of her words were true and which were false. Master, Yi Lin called out softly. Ning Shu turned around and comforted him. Don't be afraid. I won't leave you here. Even if I can't take your body, I can take your soul. Yi Lin, thank you very much. Do you know who you're talking to? The City Lord was the first to invent the soul fluid. That's why these wandering souls have a home. These people were full of admiration for this man in white. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. The first to invent the soul fluid. The main culprit. In a way, he was also an amazing person. You set up the array formation? It's nothing. I was just blindly thinking about it. Oh, blindly thinking about it led to something that could change the structure of the world on the second level? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.